and we need to reflect on that. Thank you. Thank you. I also want to acknowledge that we are on the traditional territories of the Coast Salish people, in particular the Qualicum First Nation. And the first item on the agenda is the agenda. So we need to make some additional provisions, and that one is on 8E3, which is the request from Councillor Young to attend the conference. And then we have 9.5E, and that's regarding the Eaglecrest Golf Course. And I think that's it for the additions. One more. Oh, and the Riverbank stabilization. 9.5D.
Which is the golf course?
Yeah, thank you. So the council have all that? And we'll get to it when we get to it. I'm sure I'll be reminded by staff what I've overlooked. So with that, any other changes to the agenda? I have a notice of motion, but the background material wasn't provided, so we're going to have to defer that to the next March meeting. I'm prepared to reconsider the decision regarding the Canyon Crescent issue, but we didn't get the background, which I think council and the community should have. So with that, any other changes to the agenda? Then the agenda is adopted by consent. Ms. Varela?
You may want to just adjust for Dr. Hadfield.
Yes, if there's going to be a discussion on the next items, then I'm going to ask Dr. Hatfield, who has a room full of patients waiting, to speak first. So I'm going to ask for the staff recommendation on the consent agenda. Moved Councillor Skipsey, Councillor Vander, all in favor? Motion carried. So then we'll get straight into the delegations. And as I said, Dr. Hatfield is one of the speakers for the Mid-Island Health Alliance and also has a busy practice here that I would invite her to speak first. Dr. Hatfield. Dr. Hatfield, come on up. Thanks, Suzanne. You have to turn the microphone on the base of it. There it is. No, there's a button on the base on the bottom. Thank you.
Okay.
Now this is not Dr. Hatfield, but she'll speak first. Go ahead, Suzanne.
Do we have a PowerPoint? Do we have the presentation ready? Yeah. Great, thank you. So we're here to talk about Primrose Medical Center. So certainly I just want to introduce myself. I'm Suzanne Cunningham and I'm the chair of the Mid-Island Health Alliance. And we're here as advocates to help promote primary care in the region of Oceanside and to bring forward certainly dealing with the critical shortage and going forward, and that's why we're here today. I also have joining me, as you heard the mayor indicate, that Dr. Kelly Hatfield is right behind me, who is literally our consultant, physician consultant. She's also a long-term visionary, and she's helped us put our operational framework together for the clinic. And we have Donna Hayes, who's the owner and president, if you will, of RW Wall Limited. She's also the board chair of Nanaimo Port Authority, and we're also grateful for the work that she does with Fair Care. So we're here. Thank you. Okay. So we're here today to talk about healthcare funding, and certainly funding is not what it used to be in healthcare, certainly what we know is long and true, but we recognize that the traditional funding models are no longer available to us, and we have to get quite creative as to what we can do. And so in terms of what we have done in MIHA, we've been creative, and we've been responsive to the needs of the public, and we've met with the public to have a lot of dialogue and a lot of stakeholders and players in the field with regards to what the issues are, what do we need to put in place, and to expedite that process. Next slide. So one of the things that we were really excited to see was this quote from the mayor, thank you very much, on January 14th. But I just want to take a little bit of history and give you an indication of what our journey looked like. way back in, December of 24, we met with the mayor, and Miha came and asked them what were our issues and what could we do to support the town, and we came forward with two major pieces. One was the fact is we needed space, and we needed certainly physicians to come, and so you'll hear more about that from Kelly Hadfield. So at that time, we talked about what was possible in terms of what was funding available, what were other things that were available to us, and we got very motivated and excited about what we could do in the following year, and we went about doing our business. And so today, in our timely amount and the recent developments, we're actually working forward to having Primrose start, and you'll hear more about that through this. So in terms of it, we're very encouraged about your public endorsement. Thank you very much. That was very exciting for us. And so next slide. And I'm going to pass it to Kelly.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you very much, Suzanne, as was mentioned, and thank you for permitting me to start today. I'm Dr. Kelly Hadfield. I haven't had the pleasure of getting to meet many of you here today, including you here. And sorry, thank you.
Please address the chair.
Great.
Thank you.
And so I've been a family physician here for 5 years, running the Qualicum Beach Medical Clinic and running the Qualicum First Nation Medical Walk-In Clinic. It's been a privilege to practice here for 5 years, but as we're aware, it's the densest geriatric population in the country, making it a more vulnerable community because patients are living longer with more complex, more serious illness. And what's been heartbreaking to see over the last 5 years is if you live in Qualicum, you actually suffer from a barrier in access to care that doesn't exist if you choose to live in a city. So by choosing to live in this beautiful gem, I think the best place on Vancouver Island, you actually are deciding to, what I've observed, you're gonna suffer from an access to healthcare issue, essential medical services. And so this is going to change with the Primrose Medical Center, and there's going to be 2 reasons why. I have worked very hard to get 20 doctors willing to come and start practicing at the Primrose Medical Center starting September. 20 doctors coming to Qualicum Beach. So for example, I have 4 family physicians ready to start in September. That's certainly going to help dramatically to ensure someone who isn't attached to a nurse practitioner, a family doctor, gets a family doctor. But moreover, I have specialists, subspecialists, and surgeons willing to come and set up community specialty clinics across the street at the Primrose Medical Center. So a geriatrician will come and do a community geriatric clinic. A world famous menopause expert, Dr. Jen Gunter, the most famous award book-selling author, to come and do a weekly menopause clinic. I have cardiologists, nephrologists, plastic surgeons, general surgeons, physiatrists, a wide range of specialists to help the whole town, not just the patients attached even to the family doctors. So this clinic is something I'm so excited to talk to you about because it'll change the face of healthcare in Qualicum.
You see that red light? That means the time is up, but council can approve an extension of your time. All in favor of that? Thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you. I'm going to pass it back. Actually, do you mind if I quickly run through this? Because we're very short and I want to get to Donna. Our timeline, we need our permits to get approved. We need construction ideally to start in April or May at the latest so that we're done and ready to go for September 1st. That's all this slide really is. We can talk about it more. We have been fundraising for this clinic, but as I said, this medical center can't happen without your support. As you might not know, medical clinics do not generate an income. So when you see your family doctor, you don't walk away with a bill, right? This is because we have a public healthcare system. So this medical clinic is not a generating revenue business. It's considered by CRA not operating for profit. So the physicians have a limited liability partnership and a cost-sharing agreement. So all the physicians put in the cost to cover the operations, and that's it. There's no money being generated by the clinic. And the medical directors make $0. It's a volunteer gig because who's gonna pay the medical director? There's no money being made by clinics. So that's really important to know. So supporting it, you don't make money. The other thing that's so important to recognize is by supporting this clinic, it's unlike any medical center on the island because of bringing in all of these community specialists to improve the whole care for the town. So more than just supporting a family practice clinic or a nurse practitioner clinic, which only helps patients attached to that clinic, this is going to bring in lots of family doctors every year, but it's going to help the whole town, because a patient in Berwick can go see their geriatrician across the street. You'll see a cardiologist after your heart attack. You can see your plastic surgeon for a melanoma. Local access to care will dramatically change health equity in this town permanently. And just for our last tie-in, I'm going to bring Donna up, please.
Thank you, Dr. Hatfield. Thank you, Your Worship and Council. I appreciate you giving us the opportunity to speak. Many of you have heard me speak at various events. I'm the chair of the Fair Care Alliance, and I'm here to tell you that we're here to ask you today to think outside of the box and participate in the primary care model that is so desperately needed within our communities. I can tell you that in Ottawa a couple of weeks ago, I was specifically told we are the largest population in central Vancouver Island that has access to the standard of care that every other Canadian citizen receives. That is a scary statistic. And what that means is that as various levels of government, including municipal governments and regional districts, we now have to participate in providing that health care. We no longer can rely on the province to provide the adequate funding to provide the services that our people need. This is a basic human right that we as Canadians expect under our healthcare system. And unfortunately, many of us do not have access to the first level of that care, the first level of defense. That's your family practice doctor. And when we don't have that foundation, we don't have that strength at that level, our system ends up sending people to hospitals, where I can tell you yesterday we had 441 patients in our 364-bed hospital in Nanaimo. Our system is failing. And so other municipalities, we're challenging them across Vancouver Island, throughout the province. You will see updates in the press when you're reading news articles. What are they doing in Colwood? What are they doing in Langford? What are they doing in Souk? What are we doing in Nanaimo? All of those communities at a municipal level are being asked to participate. And so today, that's what our ask is of you. We're asking you to participate at the very base level of helping us get the clinic open and operational. You've heard Dr. Hatfield's passion. Who doesn't want to be involved in a project like that? 20 new physicians working and operating in this community alone. That is amazing and desperately needed by our population here. So today I would encourage you to take a look at how you can participate. We need funds to open the clinic and get it operational. And as you will have seen, we know what our costs are going to be, we know what our timelines are, and we need to make that happen. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, when there was talk about funds, that includes you. There's a way for you to contribute to this, and perhaps Susanna can explain how they can do that, where we are looking for funds from the community as well. This is how things are done in Qualicum Beach. We don't just go to the taxpayer, we ask for people to volunteer the finances as well.
Right one?
Sorry?
Left arrow.
Left arrow?
We can offer church.
Sorry, Dr. Hatfield, speak to the microphone, please.
I apologize.
The mayor's order.
The hospital foundation, the Nanaimo Hospital Foundation, has set up a trust so that any donations that come from citizens can receive a tax receipt, and they just are indicated that it's for the Primrose Medical Center. So all donations can receive a tax receipt through support through the hospital foundation. We've already fundraised over $700,000. We need another $500,000 to get it operational and ready to go. And then we have the ability to run it ourselves. It's just opening the doors and getting it started that we need help.
Thank you. Suzanne, only to the microphone.
Okay. You'll also see that there's actually a website here for Mid-Island Health Alliance, and when you go into that site, you will find that there is a donate button. So thank you very much, and we are very grateful for the Nanaimo Foundation helping us with that. And thank you for allowing us to bring this to you, and we'll leave that decision. Our ask is, certainly, you heard from the folks, and that is for, if possible, the funding for the Primrose Clinic, and certainly the awareness piece. And I'm sure there's a permit that might need to be handled as well. So thank you very much for listening, and we'll leave it with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, Councillor? It's okay. I'll let it go.
I just have a couple questions.
Go ahead.
For things to clarify, sorry.
To whom?
Either, I'm not sure whom, actually, which of the two. So there's a bit of a financial ask here. What I'm just curious is are you looking for a donation or are you looking for a loan?
A donation.
A donation?
We don't have any.
Sorry.
Where would we get the money to pay back the loan? We don't make any revenue as a business.
Okay, sorry, that's just one thing I wanted to clarify. How many exam rooms in total would there be?
The up-to-date plans. So I don't know off the top of my head. It says here that there's 9. The construction plans have changed several times. The one that's up is the most recent.
Okay.
But we can certainly provide those details, and I'm happy to chat in more detail than this short meeting allows. Yeah.
And then just one really quick point, just to the point about attachment that was made. I think it's really important people are aware that you have to sign up online if you're unattached, if you don't have a doctor. Right now in VHA data, we are the best location on Vancouver Island in VHA's data. Right? And I know a lot of people aren't attached, but according to VHA's data, 83.3% are attached in Oceanside. So please go online and register if you're not currently attached. And then the last thing is just something that sort of piqued my interest. In December in The Economist, they had this article about American physician burnout, which is opportunity for us. But the second worst country in the study was Canada. So it's about 42% of American doctors are suffering burnout.
Yeah, I can talk about that real fast.
And then the lowest is Netherlands.
No
so
problem.
I'm just curious, like the model you're envisaging, is there anything different from how the generic
this will help
practice
immensely.
To help with
So
burnout? Okay,
Dr. Kendall-Losh is beside me. She joined my clinic. I quadrupled the number of doctors in my office in 2 years. She's one of them. It is very hard, she will attest, to working here because you're in a silo with no support, managing very complex, very sick people alone. If they have down the hall a geriatrician, the cardiologist, the plastic surgeon, your quality of work, you're so much happier being in that space, team-based care. So it will increase retention and recruitment. We'll also have space for learners, so we'll get residents, and same thing, then they'll come and they'll stay too. So it'll help a lot.
Thanks, because I was just worried that we were just going to be scaling up a model that is not bad, but could be better.
No,
Okay,
it'll keep, I'm nervous about losing the 3 doctors at my office, to be honest, all the time, because everyone feels burnt out and alone, and all of a sudden, when you aren't in a silo, you're so much happier and willing to stay.
Thank you for your work and the work you did in Africa. We saw the story about how you helped get doctors to an area in Africa, and also your passion for here and working with our First Nations. I don't think we mentioned that you also run a clinic at the First Nations in Qualicum First Nation Council. Thank you.
Thank you.
And by the way, folks, no, sorry. Normally we don't approve applause because, but in this case, I said I'll let it go because we all know we need these doctors to come and work in Qualicum Beach. So thank you, Doctor, and all the presentation that you made. Thanks. Thanks, Dr. Hatfield. So with that, I'm just going to remind everybody this is a safe working place. That means if you boo or cheer or clap, I'm not going to allow that because maybe somebody with an opposing view who may feel intimidated, well, if people are in support of that, I guess I shouldn't say anything. So I want to make sure that for everybody's sake, for council, for staff, and all of you, that you feel safe, and it's my job to make sure you feel comfortable. Thank you. So with that, the next presentation is from the Oceanside Caregivers, up to 5 minutes. Thank you. No, you turn it off. Thank you.
Is it on now?
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. I am thrilled, aren't we all, about the last presentation. Thank you. I'm asking for grace for an extra minute or two because of this urgent subject that we'll be covering for our caregiver support and our nursing home beds. We have with us today from Island Health, representing Mrs. Gallant, Clinical Operations, Emma Vander, and Helia Salem. And I have a letter from our MLA. She's in legislature today and unable to attend. And if there's time, I'd like to read it. It would take about half a minute. In this oldest population in Canada, our caregivers are extremely stressed and overburdened to the point of exhaustion, one being admitted to emergency this past weekend, and 2 others in the last month on the brink of suicide. This is why we're here. Fred and I have been holding our caregiver meetings for 7 years, and they're wearing out. This has to stop now. The stress level is huge. We also need many more nursing home beds for long-term care, so that the people will not be shipped to Comox and Nanaimo and have a nursing home bed facility built now here. These beds will also be available for our caregivers to have overnight respite beds for their loved ones for several days while caregivers get a break, rest, and recuperation so they can go back to being a caregiver 24 hours a day. We understand that there are 3 locations in Qualicum Beach for another nursing home to be built, and we ask for a motion to get the wheels in motion and get the shovels breaking ground now for our nursing home beds. And I'd like to ask one of our caregivers to share her testimony.
Thank you.
Terry Champagne.
We do have a big agenda, so we need to be concise. Thank you.
I'll talk fast. Thank you very much for allowing us the opportunity to come before you and talk about this really urgent and important thing that's going on in the community. Where to begin? I used to be a very positive person, and then I became a caregiver for my 94-year-old mother. She has macular degeneration, hearing loss, a pelvic fracture, a shoulder fracture, as well as arthritis in her hips and her back. She had knee replacements 20 years ago and has suffered severe pain ever since. She is currently unable to lift her legs and shuffles very slowly. She sleeps very little as the pain is so intense. She often weeps every night, in fact, to cope. I have lived with my mom for 5 years. In that time, I have had 1 nervous breakdown, and I expect this will not be the last one. I worry what will happen if mom is waiting for years for a placement at a nursing home facility, and I'm thoroughly exhausted. If this happens, and if I cannot look after her anymore, no one would be willing to take my place. I am on call 24 hours a day. I do it all. I'm not going to go and list everything, but you get the idea. But at what cost do I run a tight ship? Caregivers are stressed to the max. We feel alone, we are not understood, and we get very little support. The focus is always on the loved one. No one asks how we are. We are invisible, disrespected, and ignored. Relatives are so happy to not be involved with day-to-day care. They're too busy living their lives. Us, we're prisoners. Incidentally, my own doctor told me that I should get out and get rid of the daily aggravation. I should move. Truthfully, I can no longer afford $2,000 plus a month rent on my pension, so I'm stuck. I wish to thank the panel again, and I wish to thank Carol and Fred, who have brought this amazing gathering together, and also to all of you. Thank you for being here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Louise Vogler will be sharing with you.
Our esteemed Qualicum Beach Mayor and Town Council, thank you for the opportunity to speak regarding the Oceanside Caregivers petition. Caring for a loved one as they age, whether a spouse, parent, relative, is one of the most difficult, challenging, heartbreaking, frustrating, and honorable things that we do in our lifetimes. We know that a society is measured by how we care for our elderly citizens, especially when they're at their weakest and most vulnerable. And what we do now as a community to support those of us caring for our elderly loved ones. This is just paying things forward for ourselves. We all hope to age with dignity, ideally in the comfort of our homes and with our families supporting us. Our mom and dad, my sister and our mom and dad moved here in 1998. They've been a part of the fabric of this community for decades. My sister and her family moved here in 2015, and I've lived and worked overseas my whole life, and I'm currently based in the UK. Our dad passed away in 2019 after suffering from dementia for years. Our mom cared for him at home until she was no longer physically able to do so. She took full advantage of the community respite care options available at that time. And this provided her with much needed rest and recuperation during one of the most difficult periods of her life. For this, we are thankful. 6 years on.
Excuse me. Obviously, you need a few more minutes. Councillor, okay with that?
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you very much. 6 years on, our mother is now struggling with a rapid decline in her health. My sis and I want to give our mom the same opportunity to spend as much of her final years as possible in the comfort and dignity of her lovely home. So we are alternating as our mom's primary caregiver. In our experience, there is at least a 3-month wait to see a case manager just to assess our mom's condition, only after which the door opens for us to then look at respite care options out there. And these options are increasingly in high demand and very difficult to secure. In the meantime, my sister and I are juggling fulfilling our careers, our own children, and our mom. We are already reaching our breaking points as well. Without sufficient time to rest and recuperate, we are struggling to fulfill the many demands on us. We may need to leave our careers just at a time when we are at our peak earnings potential and therefore our peak tax-paying potential. This cannot be right for society at large. We should be able to work gainfully, pay our taxes, volunteer our time in this wonderful community, but we cannot maximize our contributions to the community if we ourselves are stressed to the breaking point. This is just the tip of the iceberg. Our mom is among the older cohort of baby boomers. There are far more boomers out there who will start hitting their late 70s and early 80s in the very near future. We need to invest in care infrastructure now so that the community can support our elderly citizens to live out their final years in the dignity and comfort that they deserve. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we need to wrap this up now pretty quick.
Pardon me, if I would like to please present the letters, 188 heartfelt letters from our caregivers, and also petitions from for 2,260 petitions locally that are handwritten, not electronic, and all have local addresses. And if I may...
No, please present it to our Deputy CEO.
Could we just get one photo of doing that? Would that be okay, Fred? Is it okay to take a photo?
Take a photo.
Thank you very much. As far as the MLAs, I'll have it in the letter.
Okay.
1, 2, 3. Thank you. Thank you.
And the lady behind you will receive them. Thank you. So our next delegation is from the Regional District of Nanaimo. So I'm not sure if Ben Routledge is here. Yes, Ben, and somebody else, Ms. Crabtree? You're on your own?
Thank you. Yes, I am on my own. Ms. Crabtree will be attending in April, I believe, on the transportation matter. I'm here today to present on the proposed solid waste development cost charge bylaw. My name is Ben Routledge. I'm the manager of solid waste services for the Regional District of Nanaimo. So a brief outline of the agenda today. We're just going to take a look at solid waste services in whole, discuss the solid waste DCCs, the proposed solid waste recycling program and rates, the next steps, and then I'll be able to take questions and answers. So the presentation before you today is greatly condensed from the one that we provided online as part of our public engagement. That can still be viewed at the RDN Get Involved page if you so choose. So RDN Solid Waste Services operates the regional landfill and the Church Road transfer station in accordance with all applicable provincial and federal regulations, including environmental monitoring, engineering, construction, and closure, and post-closure care. Annually, our facilities receive more than 130,000 tons of material and process more than 180,000 transactions. Since early 2019, the landfill tonnage has grown by 35%, and in 2025, we landfill close to 90,000 tons. The department also provides the regional 3-stream curbside collection program, which collects from more than 31,000 households weekly. RDN Solid Waste Services provides for the regional solid waste planning function, with the 2019 solid waste management plan targeting a 90% diversion rate, primarily from two new bylaws, the Waste Source Separation Bylaw and the Waste Haul Licensing Bylaw. Since 2019, our department has operationalized a department-wide financial and asset management plan, which has forecasted and tracked landfill airspace, population growth, diversion effects on revenue, capital needs, closure and post-closure timelines, all with the goal of reducing risk. It maintains a user-pay service, recognizing that higher diversion requires prescribed annual tax requisitions to succeed. The financial plan is monitored quarterly and updated every 3 years with the regional board approval. So solid waste DCCs. Recent legislative changes have made solid waste an eligible category under the DCC program provincially, giving us a new tool to recover for growth-related costs. A DCC program provides a clear, consistent, region-wide framework to reduce costs associated with the development and growth fairly and equitably. It supports waste diversion by stabilizing capital cost funding for recycling and diversion infrastructure, while also intending to reduce tax impacts to property owners. Sorry, I'm not used to having a remote. So the process to figure out a DCC calculation is to first estimate growth, determine capital costs for the department, and then determine the benefit of new development to existing and new residents. From there, we go through a calculation process and present options to the board for adoption of a new bylaw. So the population of the RDN is expected to grow by 56,000 from approximately 181,000 to 238,000 by 2050, which equals about a 1.1% annual growth rate. Regional projections use census people per unit factors and our regional growth strategy. The RDN Solid Waste Financial and Asset Management Plan identifies more than $127 million in capital costs over the remaining life of the regional landfill. We took this information and apportioned it between the benefits of the service to existing users, residents that are currently within the region, and those that can be attributed to new development. Based on the population growth as a percentage of the 2025 or 2050 total population, the result of that is an apportionment of 23.73%. So of the total DCC eligible capital, $30 million is attributed to new development, with $97.8 million being attributed to existing users. So if we distribute that across the different housing sectors, ICI sectors, the percentage of waste is roughly 39% for the residential single-family dwelling and multifamily sector, 13% for industrial, 30% for commercial, and 17.5% for institutional. So a residential single detached mobile will be paying $534.49, provided that the bylaw was adopted. The multifamily sector would pay $423 per unit, and the non-residential, which is based on the square meter. Sorry, I realize I'm running out of time.
Go ahead.
These numbers are projected based on the calculations that we presented to the board last month. The intent of the solid waste tax requisition, of course, was to offset the costs and revenues that we would see reduced through higher tipping fee or higher diversion. And so the intent of DCCs is not to add, but is simply to offset the tax requisition, in effect reducing the tax to residents. For the Qualicum Beach area, looking at 2024 building permit data analysis, we can see that the average cost per single family dwelling unit would be about 0.12%, with the average cost to construct in 2024 being $464,000. Multifamily, the DCC would be 0.13% of the average. So I'll speed up here. Of course, new construction would be subject to DCCs. In-stream protection would be provided to those permits that had already been issued or that were planning to be constructed within the 12 months before the DCCs were brought in. The board did consider DCC bylaw. It has gone back for legal advice, but we are also considering a waivers and reductions bylaw, which would reduce the cost of DCCs to nonprofits and other sort of entities. Currently, we're right about here with our DCC program. The board, Regional District of the Nanaimo Board will receive a report back at the end of the month regarding the voting structure for DCCs, and if adopted, the solid waste DCCs will go to the Inspector of Municipalities for approval before coming back for final approval by the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions to Mr. Routledge? Councillor Harrison.
Just a couple questions. One is for the slide which looked at the DCC impact assessment for the town of Qualicum Beach. What is the source for the average construction value? Is that based on pro formas from actual buildings, or is it from basically a published material that says here's the average cost in Qualicum Beach?
Thank you for the question. So what we do is we take all of the building permits that were issued within the area. We have that data through our planning department. We then look to see what was the final constructed value, and that's how we base that number. So
is the constructed value then coming from, so the pro forma is basically the developer has a sheet where he says, here's all my costs, here's all my revenues, and here's how everything works financially. So is it from basically the real value of that the person's actually paid, or is it from like a book value? This sort of construction generally costs this much is sort of what I'm getting at. Not so much what is the number you have, but how did you get the number is the question.
Thank you. Great question. So when we do the final permitting, we'll have that final total of what the construction value was for that property, and that's what that is based on. Yeah.
And just a second thing for DCCs, over life cycle, there's a significant difference in central located multifamily versus sprawled out suburban infrastructure. So there's a really useful study that was done in 2004 in the regional municipality of Halifax, and it looked at the varying costs for every municipal service based on housing typology. So whether it's very rural, very 4- or 5-story building, and everything in between. It's a really useful study. Although the numbers are outdated, the ratios are what I pay attention to. And I'm just wondering here because like for me, I think if we had a sprawling suburb in every direction, which we can't do, but hypothetically the regional district could, over life cycle that would be much more expensive than centrally located density. So is that something you're factoring in? Because I know DCCs are very tightly regulated from the province, so I'm just wondering if that's something you can look at or not.
Thank you for the question. So what we did is we looked at what is the per capita waste rate for per individual. So and then we looked at how many people are within each building type, and that's how we arrived at that number. So it's based more on if we can increase the amount of diversion, we would be able to then decrease the amount of the DCC, hypothetically. But again, it all comes down to that per capita waste rate. In BC, what the province has sort of worked out is that every person generates about 1 ton of garbage per year, and so that's the factor that we worked on.
Because, yeah, I do agree, like, you're using the right methodology. My problem is more the methodology itself, I guess, at the end of the day, and there's not much you can do about that because your hands are kind of tied, and I do get that. And lastly, just one quick comment on all things waste with RDN, because it doesn't really come across our tables. I do live in an apartment, and we had that whole rule about garbage, and we've been dealing with bears, because I live right next door to the park in town, and they love the organic bins, and spent a lot of time with that. So some people's nose were a bit tweaked when it said put your organics in the freezer. Most folks just have the fridge above and the freezer on top, so they don't have a separate freezer. So just want to point out for some of the folks who don't have as much money, maybe saying, oh, just get a second freezer. For some folks, that can actually be a big ask. So just something to think about when the RDN board is looking at that policy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? And as the program is almost coming near its completion, I have been voting in favor of the DCC bylaw. And the one line that I think was very worth mentioning is that DCCs is not a tax. It actually reduces the taxes on the current taxpayers. And this will only be as a result of the pressure that new development puts on our infrastructure or services like this. Thank you, Mr. Routledge.
Thank you.
And lastly, we have the DayHomes Society, Miss Day. Miss Day is not here, so we'll move on with correspondence. And we did receive the petition. So officially, there's a staff recommendation. The town did receive the packages, but we just need this for the record. Councillor Skipsey, Councillor Harrison, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And then there's a petition to receive the Memorial Avenue development proposal. Who's going to present that? Okay, there's nobody here. Well, then we'll just move on to the next thing. Sorry? Yeah, well, I thought somebody would be presenting it, but that's okay. So the motion to receive, Councillor Skipsey, Councillor Vander, discussion. All in favor? Opposed of any? Carried. Thank you. And then there's a letter, a request for a letter of support for the Safe Estuary Land Society. And the recommendation is that we do provide a letter of support. Councillor Skipsey, Councillor Young, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Then the receipt of the 2025 Special Event Grant, final report, Qualicum Beach Farmers Market. I think we all know what the situation is there, so could I have a motion to that effect? Councillor Vander, Councillor Skipsey, discussion. All in favor? Moved, carried unanimously. Then a request for a letter of support for the Early Learning Childcare Council for Oceanside. Councillor Young. Second to Councillor Skipsey. Discussion. Councillor Harrison.
Yeah, so I did read the letter, and I do support, when it's again, VHA data. One area where our Oceanside is actually lagging compared to Vancouver Island is the number of youth who are struggling financially. We're about 30 to 40% worse than the average, actually, for that metric. So yes, there's a demand for that. But I also know that the province is having a bit of an ugly budget year. So when I read the letter, I know it does say, please support the $10 a day daycare promise you made. My concern is just that the province will be able to say, look, it was a completely different, we had a $5 billion surplus or whatever the surplus is when, not trying to be partisan here, but just there was a surplus back in the day. There's now a huge deficit. It's a very different financial time. So one thing I just sort of discussed briefly with the mayor, we were discussing obviously the flag at half-mast, and the mayor mentioned as well the moment of silence at the start. But my one concern with this is maybe if there's some way we can also suggest some ways that they might want to start means testing for higher income families, so that this is something Quebec did. Quebec was the first province to do $10 a day daycare. And about 10, 12 years ago, they started making it a little bit more expensive. It's still much less than BC, but a little bit more expensive if you have a lot more money. And the idea is then that way more money can go to more families who need support as opposed to having a gap.
Just a moment.
Yeah.
So if we send a letter of support, could we include some of the things that Councillor Harrison mentioned? Because I think they're very valid. That if your family income is over $500,000, you probably don't need a $10 daycare. So I understand the province's financial restrictions, and they have a lot of competing interests as well. Would that be appropriate if we included those comments? Ms. Varela.
Thank you, Your Worship. So with your permission, since we have direction to provide the letter of support, we could go offline and develop those details and include them in the draft. So that is an option.
Does Council generally agree that we should provide some options, because they are in the same position as we are? We're all tight financially, and I think to say you need to support it without showing how they could do it. So we'll put it in the...
And I'm comfortable staying a little bit late. We have a long day. Sorry, for council, we have a long day today. But I can stay a little bit later and work with the mayor and staff and hammer out one paragraph.
Yes. But the letter of support, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Next item is bylaws, and there's some housekeeping bylaws for 3 readings and adoption. I'll go through the first and second reading and then ask if any comments. Councillor Skipsey for first reading. Councillor Harrison, all in favor? Carried. Any questions or comments to our staff about this? All right. For second reading, Councillor Young, Councillor Vander, discussion, all in favor? Carried. And for third reading, Councillor Skipsey, Councillor Vander, and Councillor Harrison, all in favor? That's approved for third reading and for adoption. Councillor Harrison, Councillor Vander, discussion, all in favor? Motion carried unanimously. Then the Town of Qualicum Beach Miscellaneous Rates Bylaw, and you have that in your package. So I need a motion for the staff recommendation. Councillor Skipsey, Councillor Young, discussion, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. And for the committee and commission review, phase 2 bylaw implementation, perhaps it would be worth for Mr. Sales or whoever works with this to make a little introduction. Ms. Varela, I know you were involved too.
Just one moment, Your Worship. Thank you, Your Worship. So Danny will be, the Deputy Director of Corporate Services, will be speaking to the committee and commission review for the bylaw piece. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Riverbank.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Westbrook. For the bylaws specifically, for the first one there, we're looking at the Heritage Forest Reserve Fund bylaw, which looks to eliminate duplication in seeking ratification, or sorry, a recommendation through the Heritage Forest Commission, and then being brought to council following that. It also fulfills on the obligation under the covenant requiring the town to consult with the grantees. And that would be accomplished through sending letters to the grantees and providing a deadline for their responses. The second bylaw there around, my apologies, I'm just trying to keep up here. With the Heritage Forest Commission bylaw itself, just kind of adds an additional member from the TLC, the Lands Conservancy, to the commission as a voting member. It removes the council liaison as a voting member and reduces the meetings down to 3. And then the final bylaw is the procedures bylaw amendment, and that looks to permit committee members to attend electronically.
Thank you, Ms. Lurberg. Can I have a motion to that effect? And we'll take them one at a time. For number 1, Councillor Skipsey, Councillor Vander. Discussion, all in favor, opposed, carried. And the second one, Councillor Harrison, Councillor Skipsey, discussion, all in favor, opposed, carried, thank you. And then the last one, the procedure bylaw change, and we saw that explained. Councillor Vander, Councillor Skipsey, all in favor, carried, thank you. Committee liaison reports. I'd first like to show you something we're going to hang up in the council chambers. This was a paddle created by Jesse Ricalma, and we have an item in our budget that says that we can work with our First Nations, liaison with the First Nations, show our respect and appreciation, and this is just one of those items that will probably hang somewhere on the wall. I'm also asking for the person who made it, Jesse Ricalma, to explain what we're actually looking at. And so it has some history and some context. So I thought that was a very good thing. And I'll bring this up later. We also have, and we've heard many times, that our town crest is culturally not correct. That it should have something else than the teepee, because teepees don't really exist in the West Coast. They had longhouses and so on. So I spoke with the chief about making a change to our logo. And you'll see it, we'll do a graphic design for that. But it will be the old totem pole that is now in the museum that used to be along the highway. And when it was on the highway by the tourist bureau, it was probably the most photographed item in Qualicum Beach. And the new totem pole, the aluminum one and the roundabout, also has elements from the design of that totem pole. So rather than using the new one, the council of the First Nation have indicated that they would want to see that totem pole on our town crest. So we'll make those changes as we go. We'll start with letterheads and town cards and so on. But I will have a look at what it actually on a piece of paper looked like. But it's hard to tell it on the little town pin. So we need to do a larger print of that. The other thing I wanted to mention, yesterday at the Regional District of Nanaimo, they were going to build a cancer center at the Nanaimo Hospital, and that should open in 2028. The City of Lansville has also approved a building permit for a 306-bed care facility in Lansville. There are a lot of people who are in the hospital but don't need to be in the hospital and shouldn't be in the hospital, but they would be in a long-term care facility. So that's in the books. It's in progress. And the construction will begin sometime this year. And it's going to be 3, I think 6-story buildings that will accommodate 306 beds. So that's high, so we really need that. And I think that's a good thing even for our area. And then I have that notice of motion that I've asked to defer to the next council meeting because we need the background material. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I just want to echo a comment I saw on social media from the elected official who I think, with no disrespect to any of my colleagues, but I think he's the wisest person in elected office in Mid-Island, and that's John Jack, who's the elected chief of the Waiat Nation and also the chair of the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District. And his point was that basically some folks are very keen to comment on the tragedy that just happened. Maybe let's wait for the facts to come out and then start looking at what we should do next after that. And don't lose sight of the fact we do have to do something. I'm not sure what that is. I'm not smart enough to say what the right reaction is. But I just worry that we're starting to, if we react too soon, we might actually just make things a little bit worse and make it a little bit more divisive. And hopefully this is something where we can all work together and try to find a common sense answer to make sure this doesn't happen anymore. Beyond that, there isn't really too much in my committee. There's maybe a couple of notices of motion I'll talk to staff for a future meeting, but that's for a future meeting. So I'll deal with that then. I do want to thank the mayor for making sure we lower the flag right away, having that moment of silence. It's not too far off in the year from when we had the shooting at the mosque in Quebec City. Yeah, it's unfortunate that we're seeing this happen more and more often, because we didn't have this so much. It was pretty rare when I was a kid, and now it seems to be every few years. So hopefully we can figure out what we need to do next. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Councillor Skipsey.
Thank you, Mayor Westbroek. My report is contained within the agenda on page 156. I did want to mention that our Beach Day Committee, prior to our last meeting, the committee received very sad news and shocking news that one of our dedicated and enthusiastic committee members, Tina Rasmussen, had passed away. And she had been a longtime member of that committee and had worked very hard, and I think she was also involved with Family Days. She represented sources on the Beach Day Committee, and I would like to ask Council to pass along our sincere condolences to her family and colleagues, and I don't know if I need a motion to do that.
You can, but we certainly would be able to send a card with our condolences on behalf of Council.
Okay, I think that would be appreciated.
Thank you.
And I also think it would be appropriate for the town to send a thank you letter to the stream keepers who took the initiative and did fundraising and had that very large, I think they called it the block of doom, removed off the beach, off our beachfront. So I think it would be nice to send a thank you letter on behalf of council and the town for their efforts.
Thank you. I think to keep track of it, I'll probably make a motion that we send a letter of appreciation to the stream keepers regarding that issue. Moved by Councillor Skipsey, Councillor Vander, seconding. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Vander.
Thank you. Well, I have my written report included in the agenda, and not too many meetings since the last council meeting. But I did mention as liaison, I attended the board meeting of the Parksville Qualicum Beach Tourism Association, and one of the things that was discussed there was the EuroMAB conference. And I just wanted to let people know a bit about that. So the Mount Arrowsmith Biosphere region will be hosting EuroMAB 2026 at the Tainamara Seaside Spa Resort and Conference Center from September 14th to 18th, 2026. This is a biannual event that brings together biospheres from Canada, United States, and 53 European countries. And this is the only the second time that EuroMAB will be hosted in Canada, and provides a unique opportunity to showcase our incredible and diverse region. EuroMAB 2026 will include tours of our region with one field trip option scheduled to visit Uptown Qualicum Beach and Heritage Forest, and will showcase cultural night at the Town of Qualicum Beach Civic Center for all attendees. So there will be many attendees. I believe the public can also attend if they wish to purchase a ticket to the conference. So that's, it's a bit early to mention this, but we don't want people to miss out the opportunity. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vander. Repetition is the mother of knowledge, so when you repeat that, a lot of people will come. Councillor Young.
I have also included my report in today's agenda. It's on page 158. And just a few things to add to it. Yes, thank you, Councillor Skipsey, for mentioning about Tina. She was a big help on our Family Day Committee as well. She organized a parade. And I must say also that right now for Family Day, she will be sadly missed, and we do need more volunteers to help with organizing the Family Day this year. So please sign up for those that have the time. Also, I'd like to acknowledge that we now have a new primary care access clinic. This is over at 219 Fern Road West is where the Tablet Pharmacy is. They are only open on Wednesday, starting today, and Thursdays, Wednesdays and Thursdays from 8 to 5, so people can drop in to seek medical services. So that's a new thing that's available for especially people that do not have a doctor or don't want to drive to Parksville. So they will have a doctor in place as well as other specialists to be of service. So that's there if you want to get more information. Also, because we're discussing budget right now, I reached out to the RDN, and there are rebates available as far as heat management and water rebate, and I've also got them to print out some pamphlets for people to access. Also want to thank the staff, the town staff, that they're already right now doing wildfire mitigation. I've witnessed it over at the dog park by the Civic Center and really appreciate that they're starting this. And lots of pamphlets. Also, the code is night, just I've mentioned in my agenda, but also that please sign up or donate. This is to support those that are in dire need for getting a helping hand. And this is for Island Crisis Care, and they distribute the money to different nonprofit organizations that are helping the homeless. And also I want to mention that we have Heritage Week coming up, which is next week, and do check out the website of our local Qualicum Beach Museum for their Family Day activities and other things that they're doing. Thanks.
Thank you. And we also have a new exhibition at the old schoolhouse that we attended on Friday. It was very well done. Staff reports. Israel.
Thank you, Your Worship. If we could just deal with late item 8E3 that authorizes Councillor Young to attend the LGLA forum.
Thank you. That's the first green sheet that we mentioned earlier. So could I have a motion to that if that series be authorized to attend this LEL meeting? Councillor Harrison? Councillor Young? All in favor? You'd like to speak to it? Go ahead.
I just would like to make note that we do have a policy where councillors and the mayor can attend specific conferences, and usually it's 2 or sometimes 3 per year, depending, and that Councillor Young has attended more than double the amount of conferences in the last few years. And so I will not be supporting this. I think if she's interested in attending this, because it is about local government leadership, it's not as relevant, I don't think, to what the other conferences that we attend, so I will not be supporting this.
Thank you. Councillor Young?
I'd like to say that I always attend the conferences that are available to governmental officials because it keeps us fresh as to what's going on amongst other municipalities, and there's always fresh ideas that, you know, I come back with. Also, at this conference and at many of the conferences, some of my fellow councillors have required hotel accommodations. I do not require accommodations of hotels because I can stay at my daughter's in Vancouver. And I also, as far as the registration for this conference, it's only $495. I'd be willing to pay for it myself out of pocket.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison.
I was just going to say that I think that a conference about local government best practices is pretty relevant to local government. Hate to say it's tautology, but I do think it is relevant. If folks are concerned about what the benefit is, I mean, we can do a debrief afterwards, and it doesn't have to be in a council meeting or not. But this is an evolving landscape. The way best practices today are different than best practices 15 years ago. So it doesn't hurt to touch base once in a while, and I think this is the first time any of us have attended that this term. I don't know if anyone else has gone this term. So getting some feedback from one member of council is better than having 3. So I don't mind doing it once and getting some feedback, especially going into an election. It might be useful if there's something where we do have an antiquated practice as a town. It might be useful to know that so we can look at what best practices are and see if that's something we want to do.
Thank you. Councillor Skipsey.
Thank you. Yeah, I did look at the proposal for what the conference would cover, and it was mostly about personal leadership styles and maybe reviewing some of the mistakes that have been made over the term. And so I am fine with Councillor Young attending this if she wants to do it on her own dime. I think that we are dealing with the budget. We've got a lot of asks in front of us, and so I'm not going to support the part that says with associated travel expenses. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Young.
I'd also like to mention that in any of the conferences that have been held in Toronto or Vancouver, I have not charged in the thousands of dollars that it costs for hotels that my fellow councillors have charged in. So I've saved thousands already. And so it's fine for me if the town doesn't feel I will be supported on the registration of this conference. I will put it on my own dime.
Thank you. Councillor Vander.
I just wanted to mention that both Councillor Young and I had attended this conference when we were first elected. So we have attended previous such conferences, but that seemed a little more reasonable doing it after people have been elected and getting to know some of the information that we need. So just to clarify.
Councillor Harrison.
I was going to say too, just in terms of taxation, 1% of taxes is roughly $125,000. So I'm not sure what the going rate is for the conference ticket, essentially. I'm assuming that's the only thing that's being charged here. But, you know, I just think that I understand that the politics of sort of saying, you know, we're drawing a line here, but compared to our actual tax bill, it's not really going to have an impact either way. I think if someone wants to attend one conference, this is the start of the year, so it's a tally for the new year. So here's one of your conferences for the year. So be it.
I think that's something worth noting, that we are allowed to attend a certain amount of conferences, and this will count for one of them. And the policy is being followed. We have restricted how many conferences members of council and the mayor can attend. If there's an additional request, we do what we do here. We follow the policy and we get council approval at a public meeting. So with that, can you identify now exactly what you're going to be charging the town for, Ms. Young? And we can vote on it.
The $495 for registration.
Thank you. So there is a motion, and this would mean that we will pay for the registration. All in favor? Did I get it moved and seconded, right? It was moved and seconded. I know Councillor Harrison moved it, and it's moved and seconded. Discussion. Councillor Skipsey.
I just want to say that the motion actually says with associated travel expenses. So that's not what I'm hearing from the table.
So we're going to have to amend that, and it says that the town will provide the registration fee. So can you work on the fly with me on that? Okay. On that basis, all in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Thank you. And then we have the old schoolhouse art center, Mr. Varela. Mrs. Varela.
Thank you, Your Worship. So council had directed staff to negotiate terms of one-time funding allocation in the amount of $50,000 for TOSH. This one-time operational stabilization funding is distinctly different than the fee for service that was already discussed at strategic planning, and council referred that item to the next strategic planning session. So we did have early a budget approval for the $50,000 with clarification on deliverables. So TOSH has advised that they're going to use the one-time funding source of $50,000 to hire 2 temporary part-time employees. And that is intended to provide operational stabilization. So looking at maintaining current service levels, sustaining that delivery of exhibitions, education programs, and visitor services without interruption. So with that, Your Worship, we're just looking for direction.
Thank you. Councillor Vander Valk? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm just wondering if there are any more details other than what we've been given here in terms of will they be explaining what funding is going to which of these items, and will we get details about that?
Thank you. Ms. Varela.
Thank you, Worship. So to be clear, the funding is for the hiring of 2 temporary employees, and TOSH will be reporting out on how the service levels were sustained. So reporting will be included.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Skipsey.
Thank you. Well, I guess my hope is that the deliverable that they have described of ensuring stable operations means that the development of a business model that is sustainable without looking to the town for additional funds. I don't know how many people were around when TOSH started out, but there was a commitment that TOSH would be self-sufficient. And in going through old papers, I found something that was from when my dad was on the board of TOSH in 1994-95. And it talks about the gallery shop statistics. And it's interesting, in the first 8 months of 1994, they brought in almost $66,000 of sales from the gallery shop. They had over 18,000 visitors. And then in 1995, they had almost $92,000 worth of sales from the gallery and about 17,000 visitors. So I think that the gift shop, the gallery, has always been part of why their business model has been successful. So I would hope that they would reconsider what they're doing with the gallery. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison.
I just point out too, though, that gallery sales, the overwhelming majority of the money goes back to the artist. It doesn't go to TOSH. I don't think they buy the painting and then resell it. And then we've discussed the gift shop innumerable times. We're not going to discuss that again. But everyone knows where we all stand on the gift shop debate. I just caution that, you know, some of those older records, I think there's far more people who actually come now. I think the number of people who come is roughly 40,000. And then also for the benefit of the public, you got a 2-page report in this agenda. We've had a lot of discussion about this in months past with presentations, both in camera and in public. We've risen, so I can say we had a discussion in camera. So if folks want more information, there is more information out there, or reach out to TOSH and they'll be able to provide you with that information, just because it's understandable that some citizens who aren't familiar with that backstory and all those previous meetings might look at $50,000 and then a 2-page report and say, wait a second, because I know 8.1% is a pretty scary default. We're going to discuss that later. But just for the benefit of the public, if you want more information, please do reach out to TOSH. They'll be able to provide that information to you.
Thank you. Any further comments? Councillor Young.
And I do know that the current board, that is the volunteers there, they're very aggressive about finding ways to make the gallery to be sustainable. And I don't think it's quite fair to use some of the older statistics, because there's different factors involved. Currently, there is a lot more shops out there selling art, and there is that competition. There is the stipulation that was not to carry paint supplies for students. So it is, you know, there's parameters that they're working with, and they are definitely seeking ways to be sustainable and resilient to the times.
Well, there was no restriction on selling art supplies to students. It was just competing with stores. And on last Friday, as I mentioned, it felt like a different atmosphere in the building. I was asked to say a few words, and the place was crowded. Like people were getting jammed in. So it's becoming more of a cultural center. And I think when we get the report back, we'll probably learn, about how some of the ways they can generate funds for themselves. Thank you. Councillor Harrison.
Just one last point, too. I've mentioned this in previous meetings, but also just for the public today. I remember one time I was looking at other communities of similar size. So I was looking at Quesnel, which is a little bit further north. It's about the same size, maybe a little bit larger than us. And they have a museum there, which the city of Quesnel funds. And I was like, well, I wonder how much they give. It's probably way less than we do, and it's double. It's about $250,000 a year. So I'm not suggesting that the museum should expect that much, nor TOSH, nor anyone. But sometimes when we say, this is a very high number, I was surprised when I did the research how much other similar-sized communities do contribute to nonprofit groups in their community. I'm not saying there's a right or wrong answer. It's a democracy. We can have a debate, but it does help sometimes to cast your eyes to other communities and look at what their budgets are. It's actually really instructive for me when I want to do that.
Thank you. So with that, can I have a motion to recommendation? Councillor Harrison, Councillor Young, discussion. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Thank you. Corporate services. Ms. Riverbank.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Westbrook, this report just really brings forward the necessary appointments for the chief election official and the deputy chief election official for the 2026 general local election.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison, Councillor Young, Councillor Skipsey. Yeah, you were going to vote for it too, I know. Discussion. Yeah. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Finance. Mr. Hare.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this report sets the direction for the 2026 municipal property tax increase, so staff can prepare the 2026 to 2030 financial plan bylaw. Staff are recommending an 8.1% increase. Council may alternatively direct staff to prepare a bylaw with a 7%, 6.5%, or provide alternative direction. The purpose of this report is not to debate or discuss the budget pressures, as this has occurred through strategic planning and through the public information session, but to obtain clear direction so that we can prepare the financial plan bylaw based on council direction. So the report identifies and recaps the key financial pressures for 2026. It aligns proposed spending with council's strategic plan, explains the impact to the typical household of the various tax scenarios that were provided in the attachments to the report, and it promotes transparency in assumptions and cost drivers and supports informed decision making. The report focuses strictly on municipal taxation, so not on school taxes, the RDN, or the hospital levy, or other external levies. And each year, council must set the municipal taxation requirement. So it's not simply a percentage decision. It reflects council's priorities, service level expectations, risk tolerance, and long-term infrastructure sustainability. Key challenge is balancing rising labor, materials, and contract costs, increasing infrastructure renewal requirements, and community expectations for service levels. And so CPI is often referenced, but it doesn't reflect municipal cost drivers for things such as asphalt, fleet, insurance, regulatory compliance, or specialized labor. And so the proposed increase is driven by 6 primary areas, as was highlighted in the report: workforce planning and additional staffing. And the financial impact of that was $202,000 or 1.5% tax rate increase. And that included a full-time operations position, a seasonal operations support position, and some additional park hours to support volunteer initiatives. It also included seasonal support tied to the Qualicum Commons, but that's funded through non-taxation revenue. And so that reflects basically service delivery requirements endorsed during strategic planning. There are also workforce and operating cost pressures, financial impact of which is about $437,000, or equates to about a 3.3% property tax increase, and that's reflective of wage and benefits, anticipated wage and benefits adjustments, which are unknown at this point as collective bargaining is in process. It also includes insurance costs, audit costs, software licensing, contracted services, and materials and supplies costs. And these are largely inflationary and market-driven pressures. There's also financial impact and increases in the policing contract, which equate to about a 0.7% increase, about $98,000 there. And the Strategic Initiatives Reserve has a $125,000 impact, or 0.9% increase, and essentially we're reinstating the contribution to the Strategic Initiatives Reserve to its original level of $250,000. It was cut back to $125,000 as a tax measure in 2025 to reduce the tax rate increase. And we also have included a sustainable asset replacement amount, so an increase to the contribution to the asset replacement reserve of $171,000, which equates to 1.3% property tax increase. Also included in the proposed financial plan is an increase of $50,000 to the reserve for investment in new assets, which equates to about a 0.4% increase. So overall, the impact on property taxation, the 8.1% will generate $1,083,000 of additional revenue. And for the typical home, which is assessed at $959,000, that would, the implication would be approximately $198 increase annually, or $17 per month. So while 8.1% seems higher than some neighboring municipalities, the total dollars raised are, as I mentioned, $1.083 million, and that's comparatively modest due to our smaller tax base in comparison to what that percentage would generate in other municipalities. So council has three broad options. One is a 7% as an alternative. Option one is a 7% increase, and this would reduce the household impact to approximately $170 per year. And this would require reconsideration of the additional provisions that are included in the budget. The other option available to council is 6.5% as identified in the report, and that would reduce the impact to about $158 a year. And again, it would require reconsideration of provisions that are included in the financial plan as we prepare the bylaw. And staff do not recommend going below 6.5% because this will, without further direction and special meetings. And council may provide alternative direction. So council direction today allows staff to prepare the financial plan bylaw for first and second reading for the February 25th meeting, and third reading for March 25th, and planned adoption for April 1st. Thank you, Your Worship. That concludes a summary of my report.
Thank you. Any questions to our Finance Administrator? Councillor Young.
I'd like to be enlightened if we did go to the lowest scenario, the 6.5%, what would we be missing out on, or where can we skim contributions to?
We would maintain our current service levels. We would be adjusting additional provisions, which we've included in the budget currently. So we've got additional resources that are provided for, so we would not include those.
Sorry, can we get a little more specific? Like, what would we miss out on in a 6.5% package?
Essentially, as I had mentioned earlier, we had additional labor provisions included, so an additional position that was included in the budget. So we would take a look at how we can restructure our budget to deliver the services that are required by the municipality, but without imposing that additional increase in operations. So we would essentially reduce the operations component of the budget, but maintain service levels at their current levels.
Okay. Councillor Skipsey.
Thank you. Well, my comfort zone is probably better around the alternative 2 on page 171, which is the 6.5% property tax increase. That would be my preference. I think just in comparison to other local governments, and I think it can be done without a lot of hardship for the community. I did, on page 184, there is an item about the skate park, and I was hoping that we could add an asterisk to that, that it would be dependent on grant or fundraising, that item, the water fountain and the toilet facility. So that would be my ask there. Thank you.
Mr. Hare, if we go with the 6.5, would that eliminate the fountain and porta potty at the skateboard park?
So, Your Worship, capital items are funded through reserves, and so they don't impact the budget. However, when we bring the budget back for first and second readings, we'll provide council with the budget book, which will have all of the projects identified. So that would be the appropriate time for council to recommend changes in funding sources, or if council wished staff to remove some capital projects from the budget, we can do so after first and second reading, but before third reading.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Harrison.
So just a few things. One of the recommendations was just to reduce the amount in the kitty for councillor projects for next year. And I think that's going to be pretty reasonable given that there's going to be some turnover probably. It's rare everyone gets reelected. It's rare everyone runs again too. So assuming there's some new folks, we have a new golf course we have to sort out. There's a whole bunch of projects on the go. I wouldn't expect that year one we'd be spending all that money, so it's reasonable to reduce that somewhat. But my other question was, I'm just sort of thinking when I was younger, some of my friends had this, they had their own policy in their own household where they'd buy used government vehicles, either from province or local governments, light trucks or sedans, because they're generally in pretty good shape, well maintained, and they're only about, usually 5 or 6 years old, sometimes 7 or 8 years old. And I'm just wondering, for some of the vehicles in our fleet, when I recall when we had that the fleet report, there were about a dozen vehicles every year that we're buying. And I'm wondering, maybe when we're looking at this, it's not just like the projects which projects do we cut, but maybe some of these operational things where we add a modicum of risk tolerance in terms of, say, like a light truck, like a F-250 equivalent. And then we just wait 1 year to buy the replacement, 1 year longer than we normally would. And I'm just wondering if that might be something which might result in some savings. I could be wrong. Maybe staff could correct me on that.
Ms. Varela.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I do want to assure council and the public that vehicles aren't automatically rolled over based on a certain kilometers. We do assess the lifespan of the vehicle, its current state, its reliability, and risk tolerance. So staff does take a really good look at the fleet. Again, I know we have deferred purchase of a number of vehicles during my term here, so I just wanted to point that out. Thank you, Your Worship.
And we'll get a more detailed report from Mr. Hare if we decide to go with alternate 2. Councillor Harrison.
And just one more thing too, sorry. We were always going to be a little bit higher than average because while we haven't finished negotiating our CBA, the CBA that we did have, which has expired previously, was set at 2% every year. It was a 3-year CBA at 2% per annum. And that was all the way through the pandemic, where 1 year inflation really spiked really high, over 7%. So, understandably, the union has a conversation there. I'm not saying what the final number would be, because that's not my job until we've agreed on a number with the union. But I just want to point that out for people too, that part of the budget is structured around what is happening in terms of pay for our staff, and that is actually generally the largest item in our budget. I think it's somewhere in the order of $7 million of our budget, ballpark, for wages and benefits, in that order of magnitude, give or take. So I just wanted one more thing for maybe the public's knowledge that they might not know, that there is that whole new CBA with a pay increase and the history of the town being a bit unique. Not every community had that low collective bargaining agreement through the pandemic. It was a unique thing we had, so we saved some money in the pandemic, and here we are. I would just add to the old cliche about comparison being the thief of joy. When I saw the comparison of the rates, I was a little bit, we need to change something. I'm not sure if we can get to 6.5, but at very least 7 would be ideal.
Thank you. Mr. Hare.
Your Worship, well, one of the comments that I'd like to kind of respond to was the contribution to the Strategic Initiatives Reserve. That reserve is fully allocated and was fully allocated through strategic planning. So any reduction in a contribution should probably be looked at in the context of next year's strategic planning, because Council would have to reprioritize its projects to fit within the available funding.
Thank you. And I don't expect any comments regarding the negotiations. Anyone else? So your motion is to go with alternate 2? Yes. Is there a seconder? Councillor Young, discussion. Councillor Skipsey. Oh.
Well, from my read of the budget, I think that the 6.5% will provide us with all of the asks that we've been, or all of the items that we have supported and are faced with, like the RCMP policing contract. We don't really have a choice there. And the workforce and operating costs. And my understanding was that with the workforce planning, the additional staffing, that there could be a plan B to accommodate a lower tax increase, that we could perhaps find funding in existing positions or whatnot. So I would support the 6.5. I think it's reasonable. Thank you.
That's been moved and seconded for the discussion. Councillor Harrison.
Yeah, I just want to point out too, though, that there is one hire that we'll see what happens. But I think also too, staff are cognizant of the fact that when you add all the numbers together, it might not be exactly 6.5 or 6 point whatever. But I think there's just going to be, we're not approving the budget today. We're just trying to give a rough sense of guidance and direction. So if it's slightly different, 6.7 or 6.8, obviously I think we'd understand. Just as long as it's clear and transparent why it's slightly different, and that's fine. I think somewhere between 6.5 and 7, I'd prefer it to be lower, obviously, but I think that's, given the overall structure of what we're looking at and what we need to do, that's probably where we're likely to end up, but I could be wrong.
Thank you. Well, I think I got to commend Mr. Hare, because we don't have a deputy financial administrator. He's doing a ton more work because of it, working long hours, long days, weekends, so really appreciate that. So for us to give you some direction as to where we're at with as far as the general tax increase, because that's the number people will look at. So I think it's important for us to give you that signal that we would like to see, as alternative 2 indicates, a 6.5% overall increase, and we look to you to say how that would happen. Ms. Varela.
Thank you, Your Worship. We'll need that in the form of a resolution, please.
Miss, we voted for we're voting on alternate 2, which is a resolution.
On page 171?
Yeah.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, alternate 2, which is 6.5.
Your Worship, we have a mover and seconder. We haven't called to vote.
We have a mover and seconder. We just have to vote. So we're all good. Okay. Further discussion. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Thank you. And then planning and community development. Mr. Sales.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Westbrook. The first item under planning for today is an update on the Ways to Achieve Attainable Market Housing project. That has been underway for quite some time, and we have our consultant here to provide an update to Council. And following the consultant presentation, there will be consideration of a few recommendations that are in the Council package. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Councillor Harrison?
Are we doing the presentation first?
Mr. Sales.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Westbrook. At this time, I would recommend we can bring the consultant up, and he has a brief presentation, and then there may be questions either to the consultant or to me. Thank you.
Today?
Today, yes.
Call him up. There he is. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship, Council. As Director of Sales just mentioned, my name is Jason Locke. I'm an associate planner with Modus Planning and Design Engagement, and we've been working on the ways to achieve attainable housing, market attainable housing since July of last year. So I have a short presentation. I want to cover 4 items. I want to first provide an update on the WAAMH project, for short. Introduce the priority housing groups. These are housing groups, priority housing groups that you would be familiar with. These are housing groups that are identified during your OCP official community plan engagement. I also want to introduce the evaluative criteria. That's perhaps the primary goal of today's presentation, is to get your feedback on the evaluative criteria, and I'll get into that in a second. So in terms of the general process, we have developed a evaluative criteria, which I'll explain in a second. We are in the process of developing a housing opportunities report, which will identify potential housing solutions that responds to each of the needs of the priority housing groups. We will receive housing ideas or solutions. Some of these ideas we've already received from your OCP steering committee. We met with them just the other day. We also met with them back in November 17th. Also seeking your ideas, council's ideas, those of staff, and then we'll be going out to the public likely in April to present these ideas, but also seek further ideas from them in terms of housing solutions. We will assess each of the proposed housing solutions against the evaluative criteria, and I'll explain how that will work in a second. And then we will develop feasibility profiles. So feasibility profile is a snapshot that shows whether a specific type of housing is realistically buildable under current conditions. So it brings together typical development costs, expected revenues in terms of rent or a sale price in terms of home ownership. It also brings together local policies, so looking at your current zoning, your current policies in your official community plan, development fees, and others. And this is done to show whether a housing type can secure funding, which is important, obviously, and can be delivered by the market, and also whether a housing type is affordable or attainable for the targeted households, in other words, the priority housing groups. And at the very end, we'll be developing the ways to achieve attainable market housing plan, which is to include the feasibility profiles and the solutions and the strategies for supporting attainable market housing in the town of Qualicum Beach. In terms of community involvement and the work that we've been doing to date, some of this I've already mentioned. In the fall of last year, we met with the Official Community Plan Steering Committee, and we presented the evaluative criteria and got their feedback. Just the other day, we had an internal housing opportunities workshop with the OCP Steering Committee, and this was to explore housing solutions or recommendations with staff and to get their feedback. We're presenting both best practices and gathering ideas on housing solutions. And here we are today, February 11th, and in the future, as I mentioned, likely in April, we'll be going out to the community and then wrapping things up, coming back to you, Council, in terms of what we heard from you, how we've incorporated your feedback, what we heard from the public, how we've incorporated their feedback, and then wrap that up in the final plan. You may be familiar with this. This was taken directly out of the proposal that the town put together. I'm not going to read through this, but I think what I want to do in particular is highlight in the context of Qualicum Beach. So this work is being done in the context of Qualicum Beach, not in the context of Vancouver. So we're looking at what are the costs of development and affordability in the context of Qualicum Beach. The development costs can be very different from community to community, construction costs, say from Victoria to here. So the housing plan will identify a short list of local viable housing solutions, test their feasibility, and set clear actions that the town can take to support more attainable market housing for priority groups. In terms of definitions, it's important to clarify what we mean by attainable and what we mean by market housing. So when we say attainable, we're talking about housing that is realistically affordable for the town's priority housing groups based on local incomes and not deeply subsidized housing. And when we say market housing, we mean housing that can largely be delivered by the private market without relying heavily on ongoing government grants, major subsidies, or free land. So the focus of this plan is where those two ideas overlap: housing that the market can realistically build and people in Qualicum Beach can realistically afford. So in terms of the priority housing groups, these are housing groups that you're probably already familiar with. As I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation, these were groups that were identified through the official community plan feedback that would have been last year that we heard from the community. And these are households that face the greatest difficulty accessing suitable, attainable housing in the community. In some cases, this may be based on income and housing affordability or the cost of housing, but also includes where individuals and households are in their life stages. For example, empty nesters looking to downsize. Is there a suitable type of housing available for people to downsize? Also, couples starting a family. Is there suitable, affordable housing or attainable housing for young couples who want to start a house that have enough bedrooms, for example? It also includes housing for people who have specific needs, accessibility needs that must be addressed through various housing forms. So the Ways to Achieve Attainable Market Housing uses priority housing groups to focus housing actions where they have the greatest impact, test whether proposed housing types are actually attainable, and also aligns land use policy and incentives with real local need. So how do we evaluate the various housing solutions? And this is sort of the crux of my presentations. At a high level, we are looking at all forms of housing, from smaller scale options to multi-unit forms of housing. But we're not treating every housing type as equal. We're weighing the strengths, we're weighing the strengths, challenges, costs, the trade-offs of each housing form to understand which ones actually make sense in Qualicum Beach. We're also paying close attention to the types of housing that is not currently delivered in the market. So as I mentioned, if someone's looking to downsize, are those options available? And so we're looking at housing that's not currently in the market, but is needed. That gap is the reason why we define the priority housing groups, or why the housing groups exist, to clearly identify who is being left out of the current market and why. So this is the evaluative criteria. So this shows 6 lenses to use consistently when evaluating housing forms. So the first one is OCP alignment. We're asking whether a housing form is already supported by the town's land use designations, or whether it would require a policy change. Physical capacity. This is quite simply, is there enough land and service land available for this type of housing to work? Market conditions. This would mean, housing realistically, so housing realistically sell or lease in Qualicum Beach based on the market conditions. And then housing need, does this help address affordability, accessibility, or other needs of the priority housing groups? And then financial feasibility, can this housing type actually be built and financed under the current cost and policy conditions? And then finally, implementation opportunity, are there clear pathways for this form to be delivered in the near term, or are there major barriers that would delay it? And then just lastly, going back to this 6 criteria, so all 6 of these criteria together help us move past just the theory and focus on housing forms that are both needed and realistically deliverable. So here's a quick example of how we would assess a housing option using the same criteria that I just showed on the previous slide. So in each row is the evaluative area, and the ratings show where the option performs well and where it runs into challenges. A high would mean that options works well in both area. A low or fail doesn't mean that the idea is rejected. It just shows where there are real barriers under current conditions. So in this example, the housing form aligns with the official committee plans, responds to the housing need, and there is a clear market demand. However, it faces physical and financial challenges that would need to be addressed in order for it to move forward. And then the value of the scorecard is that it makes these trade-offs clear and helps focus discussion on what we need to change in order to make an option viable. So at a glance, we evaluate each housing form using this 6 consistent criteria: policy fit, physical capacity, market demand, housing need, financial feasibility, and how quickly can the solution be delivered. And the intent is to focus on options that are both needed and buildable. And lastly, my last slide. So this shows a range of housing solutions we're exploring. So there is no single silver bullet. Different priority housing groups have different needs. So the plan looks at a mix of housing types rather than one approach. Examples include housing for seniors and people with mobility needs, workforce housing for local employees, smaller scale options like cottage clusters, infill housing, and secondary suites. Some of these forms already exist in Qualicum Beach, but they're not being delivered at the scale or price points needed. In addition to housing forms, the plan will also look at strategies that the town can use to support attainable market housing. So things like policy changes, approvals, and incentives. So the intent is to give council a practical means, a practical menu of options rather than a single recommendation. And with that, I'm happy to take your questions or defer them to Director Sales if I can't answer them.
That's okay. Any questions? Councillor Harrison.
All right, this is my second time asking this question. Let's see if I actually get an answer this time, because the RDN staff didn't actually provide one. Where are you getting your data from for the cost to build in the market?
Through your worship, that's a great question. We have a local appraiser, so someone who works on the island in the current housing market. So that person is on our team. As I mentioned, the feasibility profile, so that's our next step, is we'll be developing these feasibility profiles.
So where does the appraiser get their data from?
Through your worship, the data will be from, like for example, from construction cost guides. So they will look at established construction cost guides, but it's important to note that some of those construction cost guides that are published, they are published at a larger center. And so that's why the appraiser looking at what the local context is in Qualicum Beach and the surrounding area to actually get numbers that are more locally derived as opposed to coming from Vancouver or elsewhere.
And just the reason I say that is that, like, I've talked to both non-market and market people who've actually built projects in both the non-market sector and the market sector. And I have asked them the cost per square foot to build.
Yeah.
So I know those numbers for at least 2 projects to the dollar.
Yeah.
So I worry when we're just going to have a book value that's here's Vancouver Island values, you might see significant discrepancy. And also too, depending on what we ask in terms of environmental performance and a host of other issues, you know, wildly divergent values. Also too, just going to affordable housing conferences where people who build affordable housing for a living talk about their project costs and the cost per square foot for the different buildings they've built. That's just why I'm very curious about, are we getting it from real buildings for real costs? Are we getting a book value and hoping it works out? Because those are 2 very different things. So that's, I tried to ask it for the RDN guy, and I understand why, I'm not sure why I didn't get an answer, but that's just, in sum, it's really important to look at actual values of actual buildings and say this is what it actually costs, not just a guess based on Nanaimo costs.
Through your worship, absolutely, and we will be pushing the local appraiser to make sure that we have real costs, what it actually cost. The other thing that's worth pointing out is that we're looking at ways to achieve market attainable housing We are looking also at low end of market, so on the rental side, but we're not looking at non-market. So this project isn't looking at like social housing, for example. It's looking at low end of market and market housing, so home ownership.
Well, just to point out that we might want to change our priority groups, because if we have people with disabilities, people on permanent disability, the amount of income they get, you have to have deeply, deeply subsidized housing. There's, you know, if you're getting, I forget how much money it is, I think it's something like $600 or $700, or it's an absurdly low amount of money. There's nothing you can afford that isn't massively subsidized. So I just caution that if we're going to have these priority groups, that's fine, but some of them are going to require massive subsidies. There's no dodging that. Because there's nothing we can do as a local government to reach a price point with existing market costs of both land and construction costs.
Through your worship, we do have another member on the team that works in that environment, and so there will also be recommendations for that sector in the housing as well.
Councillor Young.
Hi, I noticed that on your priority housing groups, on the paper here, you say older seniors who are over the age of 80, yet on the screen it said seniors that were 75 and older. But I think there's still a gap of seniors that is missing, that is not acknowledged in the housing group. There are seniors that are receiving their pension, say at 65, and they're not able to find employment to be able to afford the rental prices nowadays. And even if they do find jobs, and usually they're not qualified because they don't have the tech knowledge, and people are preferring to hire younger people, and even if they do get hired, whatever they earn gets clawed back. So I believe your senior group should be expanded to more than over the age of 80 or 75.
I'm going to let Ms. Varela speak to that.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just think it's useful for the public and council to be reminded that council actually endorsed these priority groups before this project was launched.
Thank you. Any further comments?
Through your worship, and thank you for pointing out the 75, why it's changed from 75, from 80 to 75 is Stats Canada releases data at 75 and up, and so that's why we just slightly changed that number. But thank you for your comment, and absolutely, I think there are subgroups within these larger groups, and we are paying attention to them as well.
And I know you're using Stats Canada, but our community is unique. We predominantly have more seniors here, so we do really have to consider that larger group.
Thank you, Councillor Young. Anyone else? Councillor Skipsey. I'll get back to you, Councillor Harrison.
Thank you. In your project process and timeline, it talks about working with session with staff to discuss possible housing solutions and recommendations and whatnot. And I just wondered if we could include council in some of that preliminary sort of discussions, because council attends a lot of sessions, conferences. You know, we spend money to send councillors, and so there's a lot of knowledge at this table, and I just want to make sure that we're maybe involved in the conversation early on and not just at the end. So,
Mr. Sales.
Thank you. Through the chair to Councillor Skipsey. We would certainly welcome all the comments that council has in terms of bringing forward potential solutions, because you are well tapped into the network of local government. The challenge would be if council wanted to provide input in a formal session. There's just a limited number of meetings that we could schedule that out. So that would be the bottleneck. But written comments, absolutely, all the time, they are welcome through this process as we start going out to the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Vander.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, I can't recall exactly, but for our priority housing groups, is this based mostly on people that have a financial need, or is this all incomes? My understanding is it's more people that have a financial need, but if we could clarify that.
I'll let Mr. Steele go first, and then if the councillor, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Westbroek. Mr. Locke already said it, so I'm going to take the privilege of repeating it, in that we are looking for housing solutions that meet the needs of our residents in those specific groups in a way that they can afford. So there's both an availability aspect and an affordability aspect that we look at with these groups. Thank you.
Thank you. And have anything else? Okay, Councillor Skipsey, Vander.
Thank you. And I'm also wondering if on your chart where you have an example and the ratings, do you think that, for example, where physical capacity is low and financial feasibility is a fail, would you also include strategies that could possibly provide a solution, or why it failed, or why it's low, and what could be done about it?
Through your worship, absolutely. Any idea could be implemented through intervention. I suppose the question is, how much intervention would you be willing to go in order to get sort of the greatest impact for your money? We, as I mentioned, so we've established the evaluated criteria. Now we're doing the due diligence work, sort of the heavy lifting of developing the feasibility profiles, and those feasibility profiles will really help sort of understand on the continuum, is this financially feasible? Because from a investor or a bank's perspective, they'll really need to see how that pencils out in terms of our pro forma development. Usually it's around they want a 15 to 20% return, right? And so if you're falling well below that, then there needs to be some kind of intervention to bring that up to that rate. But absolutely, I mean, there are ways to make things happen. It just would require some stronger interventions.
Oh, just a point that it's technically the census data is broken down in 5-year increments now up to age 100, but it's a bit silly to keep shifting the yardstick of what age group you're looking at. At this stage of things, it's not that reasonable, but the data is out there if folks want to look it up at home. This is nerdy, but I do compile census data on my own for Oceanside. But when I did that historically, the reason I use 75 and older is some of the censuses historically have gone to 85 only, not 100, and some other ones have gone to 75 only. So 75 is a nice number because it catches all the way back into the 80s, and you can look at trends over time. Whereas if you were looking at, say, 90 or a specific number, that's a little bit off the wall. It's hard to get that continuity through multiple censuses. I think it's censuses, not censi. I don't know how to conjugate my Latin. But yeah, the data's out there if folks really want to look at it. But I do think that, to Mr. Sales' point and Ms. Varela's point, we approved this methodology ages ago. It's not fair to change it now.
Thank you. Further discussion? Thank you for the presentation. Thank you, Mr. Sales. Really appreciate it. Look forward to the report.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Council.
And will you provide a matrix against which the proposed bills be evaluated against?
I'm sorry, Your Worship, can you say again?
Will you provide a matrix against which the proposal will be evaluated?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, Your Worship.
Thank you. Ms. Varela has the full rank here. Go ahead, Ms. Varela.
I apologize, Your Worship. I actually didn't know the director wanted to provide a comment, so I'll let him speak first, and then I would request a break before the next item on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sales.
Thank you, Mayor Westbrook. I just wanted to highlight that there are 2 recommendations in your package just to endorse those evaluative criteria. It's very helpful to have council kind of official recognition as we move forward so that at the next stage we aren't tempted to repeat the first stage.
And we can take both recommendations at once. Councillor Vander.
I just actually request division.
Division, okay.
Thanks.
And we'll do the first one. And Councillor Vander, Councillor Skipsey moved that. Discussion on the first one. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Number 2. Who would like to move? Vander and Skipsey. Discussion. Councillor Harrison.
Yeah, so the reason we're going to be voting against this is that there are pathways to develop attainable housing, but they all require government subsidies. Those subsidies have been available throughout the entire term. The Housing Accelerator Fund was offered through the federal government. No government in the area applied. The Building Canada Homes was launched. The window was November to December of last year. No government in the area applied. Community Housing Fund is provincial. No, Parksville has applied for 1 project in the entire term. We haven't applied for any. A lot of this data, the Housing Assessment Resource Tools, HART at UBC, they have incredibly detailed information with an excellent methodology. And I don't demean the proponents. I'm sure Modus will do a great job, but it's going to basically be doing duplicating work we've already seen. And I think if we wanted to have done something in our term, we would have done something. And instead, I think we spent every penny in our affordable housing reserve, which could really, where local governments have their biggest impact for meeting groups that can't afford the market is with permitting, getting your environmental study done, servicing the lot, that sort of pre-project work. And this is just from people who actually are the project managers on affordable housing at multiple conferences over and over. This is where local governments can have the biggest impact. And we literally cleared out that reserve to buy Eaglecrest, so we have no money left. So that's why I respect Modus. I'm sure they're going to do a good job. I have nothing ill to say about them. I just disagree with the whole approach we've taken where we're doing a study instead of using existing pathways that have been proven to work, because we opened Railway in this term, which is 56 units, which have a huge range of non-market needs. So I would have preferred that we actually got something done in this term as opposed to studying how we can do something.
Thank you. Your comment about Eaglecrest has got the attention from Ms. Rella to correct that. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to remind Council and the public that the WAAMH housing project, as we fondly call it, was actually a strategic initiative of Council. So that project is here at the direction of Council. Secondly, with regards to Eaglecrest, the funding scenario, again, Council has endorsed, and we anticipate that payment of reserves based on land sales, and then Council can again make subsequent choices on how you'd like to direct those funds. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. So it's been moved and seconded for this number 2 as well. Mr. Lurenberg, yep. The further discussion. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Councillor Harrison opposed. Are you opposed, Councillor Vindeveld? No. No, okay. So just Councillor Harrison is opposed. Thank you. And now I would like to ask for a 10-minute break. Recess. Councillor Skipsey, Councillor Vandervalk, all in favor? We have a 10-minute recess. Thank you. Thank you. Call our meeting back to order. And the next item is the development variance permit and development permit for 532 Memorial Avenue. After Mr. Sales makes his presentation, I will invite anyone from the public to speak. If you would like to put your name on the list, then we'll follow that order. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Westbroek. The next item under planning today is consideration of a development variance permit and development permit for a property at 532 Memorial Avenue. I'll provide a brief overview of the proposed development, and then I'll turn it back to you so we can hear from the public on the development variance permit aspect. So for context, this property is at the intersection of Memorial Avenue and Hoy Lake Road. The proposed development is comprised of a larger building up on the upper portion of the site, fronting on Hoy Lake Road, with some smaller building massing as you go down the hill on Memorial Avenue. So for context, this is Crescent Road, Hoy Lake, Memorial. There is a landscaped area on the lower portion of the site on the west side. A small landscape node there. The existing pathway runs along the west side here. The package is much easier to read than what's up on the screen here, but I did want to highlight that the proposal has evolved over time. Council has seen this in different contexts before. The building height started out at taller and more angular with less articulation as it steps down to the adjacent properties and the roadway. It was reduced in height, and it was reduced in height again in response to comments from the council and the Advisory Planning Commission. These diagrams, which are also in your package, kind of show that in a little bit more detail. So the floor was taken off here, the sides were stepped in to provide a little bit more articulation and to reduce the perspective and massing from the street. More perspective renderings. This is the area on the intersection of Hoy Lake Road and Memorial, so they're developing a landscape node there to soften the interface and to provide a little bit more visual interest on that corner. The entrance changed dramatically from the original proposal, so more transparency through the site, and they did step back that portion of the building significantly. I believe it was a 12-foot recess. So even though the building is a wider building, because of the articulation in the middle and the interruption of the facade, the intention was to have it read like two smaller buildings. I do want to just quickly highlight the purpose of the public input today, and also to highlight the decision that's being considered by council. So there's two pieces to this. We have a development variance permit application and a development permit application. The development permit application is regard to the form and character, and it specifically references the form and character guidelines, which were previously in the official community plan. Now they're located in the zoning bylaw. Development permit considerations are compliance-based, and they're focused on whether or not the proposal meets the design guidelines and the standards in there. So council's consideration, and similar to advisory planning commission comment, has to be focused on those areas. There can't be considerations brought in that aren't actually recognized in those guidelines. Secondly, council is considering a development variance permit application today, and when considering the development variance permit, the comments and considerations should reflect on the variance that's being requested. So in this case, the request is for an increase in height. So considerations that aren't related to the specific increase in height are maybe outside of the consideration for today. In a zoning amendment, for example, that's a different situation. So council can consider anything that they really see as appropriate or relevant to the official community plan. So just wanted to provide that comment and context. And it also relates to the scope of public comment today. We sent a notice to the public, any property owner within 100 meters of the site, inviting them to provide their feedback if they would like on the development variance permit. So that's specific to height. And we kind of need to walk a fine line, because development permits don't have an opportunity for public input. So I will maybe raise my hand if comments start to go slightly in the realm of a development permit, because when we have public input on development permit features, it's becoming a little bit of a quasi-public hearing, which is not permitted by common law and not supported by legislation. So just a reminder, if I start to look uncomfortable, it's not because we don't value public input, it's simply to protect the integrity of the process that we're considering. With that, Mayor Westbrook, I conclude my comments, and we'll have more time for questions later. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that, and also that I reminded people earlier that this is a respectful workplace. So you may not agree with what somebody is saying at the podium, but I would not expect anyone to boo or clap or whatever. Please be respectful, that everybody feels confident that they can speak their opinion without feeling they're being shut down or intimidated by any way or harassed by any way. I will not accept that, and council will support me in doing that. So the first speaker on the list is Kelly Olson. You got it.
Is it on?
Yeah, you're on.
Good morning. Or it's not morning anymore, afternoon. Mayor, councillors, staff. After initially proposing a greater height, the revised plan came back nominally lowered, leaving it still virtually double the currently permitted height. And that is apparently before any mechanical fixings that might end up on top of the roof at a later stage. Being able to see the proposed buildings mocked up at true scale at some point might have been helpful, because it's quite clear that at that height on the south side of Hoy Lake, the neighbors there will basically be looking at one long wall of building. And not only they are affected, neighbors all around, up and down Memorial and Hoy Lake, maybe some on Sunningdale and the Crescent, will lose varying degrees of their privacy. And for some, they'll lose hours of sunlight during the months when the sun is low, and even filtered light in and around buildings or through trees would be more appealing than that. At night, the additional light from those extra 7.5 meters will compete with the stars, and I'm guessing it's going to win. And it's not just the neighbors, it'll be the focal point from a lot of different angles. You'll be able to see it coming up, down the streets around there, and we might even be able to see it at low tide. I woke up this morning thinking about Tumbler Ridge, and I thank you for lowering the flag today. And I cried, because life can be short and unpredictable, and being considerate of our neighbors and the people that we meet every day is important. And I think it's important to be honest about that. And we're struggling to understand how exactly allowing that extra height in any way enhances our neighborhood and our town. Because to me, it seems it doesn't. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Olson. Ms. Olson. And next is Carol Tidler.
Excuse me. I
Yeah.
was wondering if it was possible if the planner could come and put the renderings back up on.
Sure.
Because
Yeah, we can do that. Thank you.
overall, it's not clear what the
Okay.
actual height is.
Speak. You can only speak at the microphone, so I'm going to have to cut you off, and we'll ask staff to put the renderings on the screen.
Thank you for letting me have a voice here. I live on Hoy Lake Road in that block, so I will be directly affected by all of that. And actually, before I say any deep into the abyss here, I want to say one happy thing, I hope. Earlier, you brought up Jesse Ricama's paddle. So in case you don't know, I'll make a little public announcement. So Jesse Ricama will be the keynote speaker on February the 21st on Saturday at the Civic Center here in the morning. So between 9 and 12, Mabra has an event there. He is the keynote speaker, and I'm really looking forward to hearing him speak about Indigenous art. And then after him will be Nancy Randall on marine biology. So I got the event because you were talking about a much later event for him, and
Yes,
so
but
you should know about this one.
we need to talk about the variance, please.
Yeah, sorry.
Restrict your comments to the issue that's on the floor.
I know, I'm sorry, I snuck that in. Okay, so now I understand I have to change what I was going to say because we can only speak about the height. And obviously, you know, the hard part about the height is that it's really right there in the face of not only the neighborhood but the town, and there was never any effort to help us understand as a neighborhood what was about to happen. And I guarantee most of this town doesn't even know this project is going to pop up. And it's going to be big, and it's going to really dominate the landscape there. And you know, I just feel like they were very insensitive to not create a space, and it's a beautiful property, a very key property in this town, a gateway into the town, and they did not create anything that was sensitive to the beauty, as that doctor said, the gem of this little town. They have not done that. They have made no effort to reach out to understanding the concerns of the neighbors, and in any sense that I've ever seen or heard, and trying to make it fit into what Qualicum Beach is all about. It won't be affordable housing or anything that we need, really. So that would be my point, but I have to make everything stick to the height, so I can't go on about the other things that are going to happen to us around that. It's going to be a profound change for our neighborhood and take away much of the quality of things because of the height that we could hope to happen there. So, yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Tidler. Next is Michael Reeves.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I was actually going to speak to another part of the development, but I just remind everybody that my comments and that of over 120 people that are on the petition clearly indicate their concerns about this development over and above the height issues. I know in my particular case, I'm concerned about the height elevation, and I really feel badly for the, I guess there's at least 25 people that are directly opposite that massive building that are going to have people that are sitting out on their balconies on a Saturday afternoon looking directly into the backyards of all those houses and those people at that point. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was my concern regarding the traffic that's going to, because the entrance is on Hoy Lake Road, I'm getting off the topic, there's going to be 1,000 cars every week going down Hoy Lake Road, disturbing the senior citizens that typically walk back and forth on there. That's just looking at about 50 cars leaving and coming per day, roughly.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I
sorry.
gave you some leeway, but I think you're past that point,
Yeah,
so
all
thank
I'd
you.
ask is people take a close look at that. I'm sure you have.
And we saw your letters.
Okay, good
Thank
show.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Richard Potter.
Mayor, Mr. Mayor, Council, and staff, I wish to speak against the allowance of the height variance. I believe that allowing that to go ahead will irrevocably change the very face of Qualicum Beach. It's the main approach off the seaward approach to our little quiet town. I'd also like to point out that we've entertained this proposal several times, and it is putting a tremendous amount of stress on our small, quiet community. And my wife was in tears this morning. I live just down the street from the development. And I hope that you will take the community into consideration, because that's why you were elected, to do that. And look after our quality of life, protect our small community. And we don't really, in view of the earlier submissions, we can see, do we need more absolutely high-end accommodation?
This meeting is about the height variance.
Thank you, yes, and I thank you very much.
And we've read your letter. Thank you. Next is Malcolm Chandler. There you are.
Mayor and Council, I may end up just reading a letter which we submitted the other day, and to the point that any variance requested for height is actually a gift. The gift is actually presented by council, but it's from the neighborhood. The neighborhood are the people who give away the height. What do they get in return? You may recall the first submission that it was initially drawn as 4 stories, with the presentation from the design team saying that, well, if 2 stories blocks the view, we might as well have 4 stories. And that's an indication of the care and concern that the developer has for our neighborhood. How do they deserve a windfall profit for the additional height? Has it given away anything? It's taken away openness, public views, neighborhood scale, and privacy. It offers nothing in return. Nothing is offered. The neighborhood hasn't, reference to...
Mr. Seals?
Thank you. Just a reminder to stick to height. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
I thought that the loss of visibility was based on height, sorry. The reference to allowable 11 meters for new residential is irrelevant. The neighbor's already built out. It's unneighborly to allow a new building to dominate an overview. The proposed footprint of the building along Hoy Lake Road is already massive. Adding height to that adds insult to injury. The massive footprint is an expected overheight allowance is actually pure greed. In reviewing the drawings over the last year, we've never seen height referenced in dimensions. We just see drawings, illustrations. We never see specific heights, and I find that a real shortfall. Simply put, adding housing because it has 4 walls and a roof doesn't qualify. If it doesn't fit, don't approve it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the gallery who didn't sign up wants to speak?
I'd like to.
Come up. And just state your name for the record.
Sure, it's Matthew Morton. I live at 164 Crescent Road East. Actually, I was surprised to see my plot of land on the presentation so close to the development, which I am, 5 doors away, but yet I'd never received any notice of this large-scale development going in a single-family residential neighborhood. That's the first thing. Second thing is I scoured, told by local friends in the neighborhood about it. On the town site, website, it's not clear what height, and even here today, is the developer requesting in the variance. What is that height? Can anybody answer that? We're here about increasing the height. What is the actual height of the building?
Excuse me. Always address council.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you. What's your question?
What is the actual height that the developer is requesting for the building?
Thank you.
The variance.
I think that's been in the report, but go ahead, Mr. Seals.
Thank you. It is in the report. I'm just looking for the exact number. I believe it's 14.79 meters, but
I'd just like to point out, if we're going to have questions, maybe we do that when we're having the debate as council, maybe not while we're hearing people.
I allow people at the podium, if they have a question, that they can, you can answer that right away.
Yeah, but I'm glad I asked, because it's 48.52 feet, where the drawings here today showed 2 different plans, and the new plan said 28 feet. So thank you for clarifying that. And what is, I have a final question, what is the zoning? What height does the zoning allow? Because we're going for a variance here.
Okay.
Sorry.
It doesn't require an OCP amendment or a zoning amendment. It's just a variance.
Yeah, but the variance, but it's a major variance, so it's a variance to the zoning. The zoning allows a certain height for that parcel of land, correct?
Mr. Seals.
thank you. So I'm happy to answer these questions, but I would support Councillor Harrison's recommendation that if council needs clarification, we do that during a later portion of the agenda. Engaging in a question and answer, a debate at this point wouldn't be as productive. Thank you.
Okay, so we got your question noted, and staff will respond when you're finished. Thank you.
Well, we don't have the information.
We're going to get the information.
As citizens, as ratepayers, all we have is 48.53 feet. We don't have the proper information.
Please, I chair this meeting. After you sit down and everybody else has spoken, I'll get the information.
And you can communicate that to the people that live in the town.
Please don't applaud.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison?
Just to point out too, the reason why we're stressing procedure right now, it's really important you get procedure right. If this was to go to a judge and a judge was to look at us deviating from established procedure and doing everything wrong, what would the judge say? The judge might just say, okay, just build it, and then there'd be nothing we could do as a council. That's a hypothetical outcome of a court challenge. That's why I'm saying, follow the procedure, please. Try to respect everyone here, and let's just make sure we get through this smoothly and try to innovate, let's say. It's really important we just follow the way we do things normally.
Thank you. So I will not engage in a debate. You can ask a question, and after everybody has spoken, I'll ask the planner to provide answers to those questions. Thank you. Ms. Miller?
Thank you, Your Worship. I do just think it's important that people understand that the height variance is requested from 7.5 meters to 14.78 meters. Thank you, Your Worship.
I think Mr. Sales identified that. Anyone else wishing to speak? Yes, come on up. Come on up, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm Carol Murphy from 549. Memorial Avenue. I live directly across from the proposal. It's interesting. My husband did some, he wanted for people to visualize what the mass and height of that building will be on the lot. And basically, that building is as long as the Queen of Esquimalt ferry. It's as tall as the 4 decks on the Constellation. And that's basically what we're going to be seeing, is the equivalent of a BC ferry sitting on the top of our hill. Also, the 3 cube-like buildings that go down Memorial, at least in the beginning, they were split up so you could get air and so on flowing through there. Now they have a flat roof. That flat roof is 3 stories high, which is actually higher than the lamp posts that are going down Memorial. So the height of those buildings is going to cause not only noise reverberation, because everybody guns it going up Memorial, but it's also going to create a mass of shade all the way down that walkway for 3 seasons of the year, because those buildings are only 5 paces, 15 feet back from the walkway. So it's going to be a big change, and it's the proposal that they've given us is basically the same one 3 times with a nip and a tuck. And I'd really like to see something more scaled to our zoning height, and something that is sympathetic to the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the gallery who wishes to speak? Yes, Mr. Pritchard, come on up.
Tim Pritchard, dealing with the height, and I might have to enlist the Director of Planning's assistance on this because I haven't memorized his staff memorandum completely. There is a paragraph, probably about page 3 on there, that specifically addresses height. And part of that height is the process of that statement, is the process of how the height of a building is established for the purposes of a variance. I don't think I'll do it, but if you'd permit, maybe Mr. Sales could just clarify what it says in that paragraph.
Thank you. So that question is noted. We'll get to that. Anyone else from the gallery wishing to speak? All right. Then, Mr. Sales, there were a couple of questions raised. Could you respond to those, please?
Thank you, Mayor Westbrook. So the height is clearly noted in the memo and also in the plans. So I'll just reiterate that the building height is noted at 24.6 feet, which, sorry, no, that's the existing. Yeah, it was 14.78 meters. My apologies, I was looking at the wrong number there. So it is clearly noted in there, so there's no, that's why we're here today, is to talk about height. It's very clearly noted in the memo. I don't have statistics on the length of BC ferries, so I can't provide direct commentary on those. So was there a specific question? Oh, how height is calculated. Yeah, so on a slope, it is interesting the way height is calculated. So you take the elevation at the 4 corners of the building and you get an average, right? And then you measure directly up there to the highest point of the building. So when we note a height of say 14.78 meters, that's the worst case scenario as measured from that average natural grade. So a lot of the building is lower than that, as it steps down to the sides, but that's not considered in the maximum height. So, and in the portions on the ends where it steps down to 2 stories, that would be significantly lower than the 14.78.
Thank you. And could I ask people to turn off their phones or put them on vibrate or something? Thank you. Any other comments, questions from council? Councillor Vander.
Thank you. I think it should be noted that we have received the petition and we have received a lot of letters from neighbors. Unfortunately, I think a lot of people aren't as comfortable speaking, so there is definitely a lot of concern from the neighbors about this project. I would just like to point out that the town did just complete the OCP review in December of last year, and what the residents told us, once again, is they wish to retain the small town feel and look of the town. And in this proposal, the height proposed is almost double the allowable height. The massing is extremely large, with the building running along Hoy Lake Road East for over 300 feet, as best I can tell, because I couldn't really read the dimensions. And as one resident pointed out, may be the size of a Queen of Esquimalt ferry. I'm not sure. I'm not a ferry expert either, but it is big. And that has been acknowledged by the architects when they presented to the APC, to the Advisory Planning Commission. And it is across from 1-story single-family homes on a small residential street in a quiet residential area. So I think that we can't look at the height without looking at the massing and how things are placed on the site. And everything is up. Essentially, the big building is up on Hoy Lake Road. And it is very, very high.
Point of order.
Just one quick clarification on a point of order. Are we able to discuss massing during a variance permit?
Mr. Seals.
Thank you. Through the chair, to Councillor Harrison's question. A development permit is also under consideration today. So unless council is splitting the discussion of height and the variance, or sorry, height and the development permit, the foreman character, it's all open right now. However, if council does want to split consideration of the two, then I think discussion would be more regimented in terms of dividing. Thank you.
Okay, but because we're doing both, we can accommodate that kind of comment.
Correct.
Okay,
correct.
Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. Now I've lost my train of thought here, sorry. At the APC meetings, there was a lot of discussion about the design that would be best for the development and did not really give consideration to the surrounding neighborhood and the impact such a development would have, and how the design fit with the development permit guidelines was not really addressed. Discussion about the articulation of the facade suggested what would help to the perceived mass of the building, which is very different from the actual mass of the building. So if you have architectural methods that will break down that design into vertical or horizontal elements, that's different than the actual mass of the building. And further, there was a great deal of discussion about the gateway site as a gateway into the town and to the uptown area. And in order to promote the charm of Qualicum Beach, buildings shall avoid massive building components in favor of smaller village-scale character and design. And also in the criteria for the variance on the height variances will be entertained, particularly if the portion of a building that is the subject of the variance assists in enhancing the village character. That's why the height variance would be entertained. So I don't think that this design and this building meet those criteria. I think that it is too high and massive, and so I'm not in favor of the height variance.
Don't we get an opportunity to speak for our project?
Well, I did ask if anyone wanted to speak.
I thought you, the general
No,
public didn't
anybody,
respond.
yeah, no, you're part of the gallery, so you can come up and speak. My apologies if I didn't make that clear.
Well, I didn't, I asked to put my name down, she said I didn't need to, that's all.
Oh.
So I think each of us would like to have.
In that case, I'm going to ask council to agree that you can speak as well. That was a miscommunication. You should have been allowed on, be on the list. So come on up. Are you finished? We should hear the comments first. Go ahead.
I don't sure it makes any difference, but I'm Ken Shelley. I've been a resident here for 45 years, been doing business in here for 45 years. I don't like to think that we don't care about the public. I do very much care about the public. My partner, John Briolo, and myself have done a whole pile of stuff, not that we have to mention, to protect the public here and to do our jobs. I had a meeting, this project is 2.5 years now. We're trying to follow the OPC and the methods to develop. There's no doubt about it. We were...
Sorry, Mr. Sales.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt. The height is the topic of public input, and we have to hold on to that as well.
The height, we did go 3 variances, so for that, 3 different meetings for it. Each one of them, at the very first meeting, it could have been said, the 5-story look should be taken down to 2. That would have solved all the problems. It did. It said take down a story. We've got all that. It's all on YouTube. So we know exactly what we were told to do. We did that. Then we went to APC. APC said the exact same thing. Bring it down. We did that. Bring the building in, take the building down. We did that. APC, second time, said they liked it. So we came back from that APC with the height exactly the way they accepted it. Doesn't mean you have to, but they did. But as a developer, we're doing whatever it is that we've been asked to do in the process to get to the height that everybody is looking for. So I apologize to the neighbors for the height, but there's going to be something built there, whether it's us or somebody else. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Windley, would you like to speak?
Yeah, thank you, your Mayor, councillors, Jeff Windley. To echo Ken's comments, we went through several phases, Committee of the Whole, APC, Council again, referred back to APC, and we've met everything. They spoke to massing, they spoke to height, and they supported it. At one point, the APC suggested leaving an extra height on the top of it for an amenity building, which we decided to take off. We're down to 4 stories. We've pushed the building down quite considerably, where the first floor is basically below road grade, so there's only about 3 stories above grade. So we've done everything humanly possible to make this blend in. I think the architects and the team that we have done an immaculate job in using natural colors and just trying to make it blend as best as possible into the landscape. In that area, yes, I agree that people are going to have some apprehension to a new building, something that may seem imposing, but I can almost guarantee from our past experience on many jobs, many projects where height is always contentious. Everybody's up in arms, but after a while, it starts to blend. And as our landscaping starts to flourish and grow and soften everything, the whole project actually starts to blend in naturally. Right now along Hoy Lake, there's a stand of trees that blocks views, blocks sun. If you're talking about blocking sun and stuff due to height, there's a stand of trees there that's even higher than our building. So in perspective, we've done a lot to take in consideration of shadowing and all that kind of stuff. So the building itself is very soft in relation to where it started, to some of the other projects that are in town that are of the same height. Railways, 5 to 6 stories. You got Berwick, which is 5 to 6 stories. We just did East Village, which is 6 stories. So there is a lot of buildings in the area. The unfortunate thing about this location is that it's one of the only pieces of land that's left that we can develop to provide housing to people that actually want to downsize. This is a product that we've actually researched in height. No, but for the height to allow people to go there. So it's, but from a height standpoint, we've done everything humanly possible, and if it was a flat lot, it wouldn't be as imposing as it is because of the way the calculations are due to the sloping of the land. But again, the point is, we've done a lot and we've listened to it, and the fact that the APC stepped up before our last APC and spoke to the height, that this is something that's needed and the height is accepted. So if we can't take advice from the APC, who can we take advice from?
Council, ultimately, you have one more person in your party that also wishes to speak. Come on up.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, through the Mayor and all the councillors. Regarding the height, the existing zoning is outdated. The existing zoning asks for 7.5 meters for height. You cannot build any home for 7.5 meters. Imagine if you subdividing this property to the 5 single-family homes, they can build up to 14 meters in height. Single-family home, no apartment building. That can be responded by staff.
Excuse me for a moment.
Your Worship, the Director had his hand up for a correction there. I think that's
Sorry,
important.
I just made a note of it, and to be consistent, I'll address it later on. Thank you.
Thank you. Please proceed.
So in ACP regarding the height, what we did demonstrated is that always height is relevant to the distance between the buildings. Our closest building to the road, across the street home is 130 feet space. And at that point, actually, our building is 8.5 meters high because we are stepping at the building section. So it's basically, as my colleague says, we did all we can possibly do, dropping from all sides, pushing back the building, and reducing building height close to the Hoy Lake. And for 4 neighbors across the street, the immediate they see closest building's facade is 8.5, and then a step up in the 4th floor. So I think any projects need to be built there. This is the minimum height they will ask, because that's even across the street zoning allowing to 21 meters height. We are not building at that one. Regarding the shading, building is located in the south side of the property. So in never any part of the year, this building have a shade on the property across the street, or it will have a shade on the sidewalk and Memorial, but not the buildings across this street for neighbors. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm going to put us on hold for a moment until we hear from everybody in the gallery. Someone else, come on up, sir.
I spoke earlier, but I have one brief concern. Every time we look at these drawings, and I will call them drawings, they're actually renderings. There is a set of architectural drawings that don't match the renderings, and neither of them show the height. How can anybody evaluate the height without dimensions shown on the drawings? I find this absolutely bewildering.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's start with that. Mr. Sales, what about the renderings and the plans?
Thank you, Mayor Westbrook. So just two comments. So in terms of the renderings versus the plans, so typically renderings don't have dimensions on it, so we should be referring to the architectural plans, which are in the package for the actual building height and dimensions and such. I did want to address the maximum height on adjacent parcels. It is 11 meters is the maximum height, not 14, so just a brief correction. And I think it's important to note that when the maximum height was changed from 9 meters to 11 meters as a part of the province's Bill 44 initiative, in retrospect, it would have been it would have been a good idea to also increase the maximum height in the commercial and multi-residential properties too. We strictly adhered to what the province told us we had to do, but what it has created is a sort of an inequity between the multi-residential properties and the single family or the single detached properties. So it's sort of counterintuitive that you can build a larger structure on a single detached property than you can on a property that's been designated for multi-residential and commercial for many years. So I just wanted to note that the drawings in the package also do include a height measurement as from Hoy Lake Road, because I think that's really important. So because the land slopes off so quickly, first of all, the building is slightly recessed below the street level. So from the street level to the highest point in the building is less than 11 meters. So if you were to compare that to a building across the street, because they're benefiting by the change in grade, a similar 11-meter building on the south side of the street would be higher than this building, and that's conforming to the existing zoning. So just provide that for context. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the gallery before I go back to the council meeting? All right. I had a question about what you just said. Yes.
Thanks. It's Carol Murphy again. Thank you, Mr. Shelley. We love Qualicum Beach. We like what you do. We use the Qualicum Beach Inn all the time. It fits beautifully into that neighborhood, which is only a block further down from where we are. So it would be really nice if this development could nestle into that hill and fit within the kind of scope and sympathy to what's around it, which are virtually single-story homes. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Seals, and this is more about the development permit, so I'm not sure if I can raise this, so I'll need your guidance, but there was talk about improving the intersection. What can you share about that?
Thank you. So if this does proceed beyond the development permit and development variance permit stage, our engineering team would be working with them to resolve potential transportation issues. I did have a discussion with one of the proponents about how the Hoy Lake Road intersection could potentially be improved, and they actually had their engineering team look briefly at it as sort of a preview of what could be possible. And because the Hoy Lake Road currently intersects Memorial at an unusual angle, it creates some visibility issues. There might be an opportunity to slightly align the interface between those two roads so that when you're coming from Hoy Lake, you intersect Memorial Avenue at a 90-degree angle. So that's the type of improvement that could be considered in the building permit process, so that the building inspector could require those changes in consultation with the engineering team. The applicant has indicated informally that they would be more than willing to make those types of changes. Thank you.
And the other question I have is about the concern that was raised by, I think, somebody who lives on East Crescent, that they didn't get notified. Are they within the range that should have been notified?
Thank you. So we did notify 100-meter radius. The minimum, according to legislation, is 50, so we went twice as far as is required by the legislation. I can't tell you off the top of my head whether that particular gentleman is within the 100-meter radius. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Shelley, come on up. And push the button on the base of the mic.
I just put it in perspective, if I understand it. If we were allowed to develop 6 family homes or 5 family homes, that would still be the same height as what we're proposing. So my point is that we did take that in consideration. I just want to make sure the gallery knows that the 11 meters would be what a house can be built at. There would be gaps, but that's more massing than there is height. So the heights would be exactly the same. Massing would change. But we are following the 49% allowable buildable space on the other thing. I'm just going to make one other note.
Sure.
I had 3 meetings with the town in regards to what the town wanted, what the people wanted. We've got over 250 people on a list that are waiting for downsizing. I know I'm not supposed to, I'm going to step back. Sorry about that, guys. Just thought I'd step it up.
Thank you. Just trying to keep the discussion on track. Thank you.
When I heard you mention the intersection, and that has been a serious concern, that people think that everybody who comes out of that parking area would all go through Berwick Road and places that they couldn't otherwise have to because they couldn't get onto the Memorial Avenue because of safety concerns and sidelines. I'm going to suggest something. I'd like to see some movement on this property, but since the traffic circulation was a significant concern, I would like to defer this to another council meeting where we can actually see how that intersection is going to work. Because I got a lot of letters from people that they're going to worry about traffic having to go to Berwick and other streets when we could be making this intersection safer, which is probably what we should do anyway. Mr. Seals.
Thank you. So I would just advise a little bit of caution in that the intersection alignment doesn't relate to the height and doesn't relate to the form and character. So should council defer or make a decision based on something that's not directly related to the 2 processes that we're in, it represents a little bit of risk. So more than happy to provide detail later on as the design evolves. Certainly it will need to be addressed by the engineering team, but in terms of how that alignment relates to the council decision-making process, I don't think it should be a factor directly. So development variance permit, height, form and character, the guidelines specifically, everything else should be deferred to another discussion or just carried out informally. Thank you.
So, and as I said, I need your guidance, and Ms. Varela is also experienced in this area. How could we accommodate that so that the public can see what it actually, how it will affect the neighborhood? Just a sec, Peter. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Westbrook. So at this time, it would be slightly presumptive to assume what the right engineering solution is. Their engineering team has put forward one potential scenario, but our engineering team hasn't yet had a chance to discuss it. So the way the process would unfold is that they would propose something. Our engineering team would provide some comments, and there would likely be some back and forth, and perhaps some other solutions that may not be similar to what they originally contemplated. And then at that point, once there is some resolution, we'd be more than happy to share with the public, share with anyone, because that would become essentially a capital project that is undertaken at the cost of the developer.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wendley?
Yeah, so if we're talking to the traffic and the safety end of things.
No, we can't apparently. This is really awkward. I'm sorry. I apologize. The procedure we have to follow without taking the risk of this is not a valid meeting. So leave it with us.
But my point is, we did a traffic study, which you guys have received. Under the current zoning for hotel, we're not imposing any additional traffic to that intersection that's not already possible.
I'm sorry.
So
I think because it's so difficult to paint within the lines, and there's some new information, this is very encouraging, that we could actually do this at another meeting There's a lot of information here, and as some people said, this is critical to the character of the town of Qualicum Beach. So I'm going to move that we defer this item to the council meeting in March, first meeting in March. Okay, thank you.
I haven't had an opportunity to speak to this yet, so before we defer it, I think it's not unreasonable to ask for that opportunity. I wanted to make a couple of comments, and one was there was a comment made saying if council had said only this much, then we would have adhered to that. In the meeting on June 18th, 2025, council adopted a motion that said council refer the application for 532 Memorial Avenue back to the developer to address the following: the height not to exceed 3 stories plus the elevator and a small rooftop amenity space on the floor above. So I think we were pretty clear as to what direction we wanted to go in. I am going to make a couple of comments, and I'm going to stick at this point to the development variance permit, so just to the height. And I believe that the majority of this council was elected to uphold the OCP and the shared vision of this community. And that is what I plan to do. This proposal started at more than 3 times the allowable height, and council said no more than 3 stories. There was a gentleman that is a neighbor who would have been here today, but because of medical issues, he couldn't. But he relayed a story to me about when this site was last considered. And my understanding is that the architect went into his home and looked out his window to see what the height elevation, what impact it was going to have on the neighbor and the neighborhood. And I think that, you know, that type of sensitivity was much appreciated, but also that process helped, my understanding, contributed to the 7.5 meter height limit that was determined in the zoning or in the development permit. I wanted to comment that also it's been brought to my attention in other countries, like Switzerland, for example, where they use a long pole and they actually put it in the site, and it's got a little bracket on the top, and it indicates so everybody can see what that height impact is going to look like in the neighborhood. And I think maybe that's something we need to maybe invest in here in Qualicum Beach. In my experience, I think we arrive at better outcomes when we listen to each other and when the community input is valued. And like the residents we received a letter from last evening, I'm more of a YIMBY, yes, in my backyard when developments follow the stipulated guidelines in our OCP. So that would be the height of 7.5 meters. So I have a motion.
Before we go there, I need a motion to go beyond 3 hours.
Okay. Well, I won't make a motion. I'll make the motion to go beyond 3 hours.
Okay, Councillor Harrison seconding. All in favor? We can go beyond 3 hours.
I just suggest that we all get an opportunity to speak before anyone does a motion or a deferral. We all get our one turn, and then whatever motion we do, we'll do.
We'll go around the table and we'll give everybody a chance. Thank you. Please proceed, Mr. Councillor Skipsey. You done?
Okay. So if we could just bring up page 214 of the slides. I thought that was sort of a useful slide in our agenda package. Sorry to just sort of tell staff to do this with no forewarning, but this is sort of the conversation about building heights and illustrates this idea. If you did a subdivision, made everything R1, and maybe just zoom out a little bit, because there's three different things. That's actually, my aunt used to live across the street on Hoy Lake. I've house sat there. I'm quite familiar with the property. I used to go every year for the little Christmas shindig my aunt would put on. Hoy Lake, if you actually look at the land, it actually slopes. It's not flat. So where my aunt's house is, because it's set back where it was, she moved out before this development came forward, which is fortunate for me, because otherwise it'd be in weird position legally. Anyways, if you look at where the house is, I'm very familiar with where her house is, it actually slopes up quite significantly. It's about half a story to a story almost from height, just because of the slope of the house. Some of the other homes are closer to the road, so there's less of a height. Obviously, you're closer, so there's less height from the slope. But a lot of those houses are set back if you look at the Google view of things. It's different for different houses, but I do think this sort of gets an idea of if you built a new single family or a duplex or a fourplex or whatever on the street level, it would be basically a little bit taller, if anything, in some of the places, or about the same, more or less. So I think for height, this sort of clearly shows where things stand. I know there's been some discussion in the public about, is it clear what is or isn't here? I think this is just really useful for everyone. This is sort of what we're talking about with height relative to the other properties. If anything, it's too generous to the, I don't think it's being accurate because it doesn't incorporate the slope that actually is there. It's just a straight line in the diagrams. To be fair though, there's a huge variance depending on where your house is. So if your house is really far back, you might have fine view all the same. If your house is really close, it might actually be basically what's shown here. So that's just one point off the top of my head. Second thing is APC. So it does say in our agenda package on page 199, the final recommendation from the APC recommends to council that the development variance permit and development permit for 532 Memorial Avenue be approved. So that is, after the third iteration of going to the APC, that is the recommendation of the APC, which is pretty clear. Now, granted, there's some other things they mentioned too, and I think the point about the intersection is a wonderful wrinkle that I don't know if I should discuss or not. I don't think I should, but it's an interesting point. There is a traffic study that's quite lengthy in our agenda, and they did look at two different entrances, which is uncommon. They usually don't do that in traffic studies, but that reflected debate we had at a council table. The other thing too is I was just looking at census data. Granted, this hasn't been updated as 2021, so it's a bit dated. We have seen a few apartment buildings built in Qualicum Beach, but in 2021, we have 3,515 single detached houses and 390 units in an apartment building, less than 5 stories.
Point of order, what does this have to do with height?
Massing and density. Okay. So one of the things
and please go through the chair.
Yeah, no, but that's we're in the development permit thing. To your point about the variance, this is just height, but because we're doing the broader thing of the DP2, that's why. Basically, one of the things too, coupled with that, is 23.3%. Remember the 75 plus conversation? There's 23.3% of our population in the 2021 census. I'd expect it to be 25% of the next census. Expect that number to go up. The over 75 population in Qualicum Beach. Could be wrong, but we'll find out in a year. But basically, I don't think we have the housing stock that the needs of our population has currently or will have in the future. And I do think, while I respect the fact that a lot of folks say this is what we're used to, and so please don't deviate from that, I feel that this is just a philosophical difference. I think we have to meet the long-term needs of the community, not the present needs of the community. Where are we going to be in 5 years? Where are we going to be in 10 years? Where are we going to be in 20, 50 years even? And so I do think there is a need for some apartment buildings in town. Fair question is, where do they go? That's basically laid out by our OCP. When someone said this doesn't line with the OCP, well, why is this a variance and not an OCP amendment? If it doesn't line up with the OCP, then it should be an OCP amendment. It's not an OCP amendment, it's a variance. So they're meeting the use, they're meeting the density, they're meeting the number of units. What they're not meeting is the height, and there's a fair debate on height. But basically, that's the only thing that, if it wasn't for the height, they could build this tomorrow. And off you go. It would just be staff interacting with the proponent, and council wouldn't be involved whatsoever. So I do think when people say, you know, you want to uphold the OCP, Eaglecrest kind of put an end to all of that. Those 393 units that were never supposed to be developed per our OCP, but we had to, right? So I just caution when we say we're following the OCP, we're following this. It's not the OCP. This is antiquated zoning. You can argue whether it's appropriate or not, but it's really subjective. And the last consideration too is that—
Just a second, I got a hand up here.
Sure.
So Councillor, Ms. Varela?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd just caution against statements about Eaglecrest in relation to the OCP. That OCP has been amended and is in compliance. So thank you, Your Worship.
Yeah, thank you.
But, you know, no one ran on that rezoning, right? And it is a significant change in the OCP. Yeah, that's why it was an OCP amendment. It's the most consequential OCP amendment, I'd argue, in the 21st century in Qualicum Beach. Certainly in terms of the number of units that are being added in an OCP amendment. So the last thing too is just that this does loop into Eaglecrest. We are talking about the budget. We had a very large tax increase. I know it's awkward for some of the neighbors to think about, but the reality for the town is that when you add development, you add to your tax base. East Village, a lot of people opposed. It also creates about a 3% reduction in taxes, 2 to 3%, somewhere in that range, because $200,000 to $300,000 of residential taxes would be my guess. And 1% taxes is $125,000. So when we're looking at the long-term health of the community too, there's a financial lens, and then also too, we're gonna have to sell a lot of land in Eaglecrest for multifamily. So the current zoning is all multifamily pretty much for 17 and 18. If we don't show we're willing to approve something, what will people pay for the land? If we're viewed as just being obstreperous and Charlie Brown with a football, moving the football every single time someone tries to kick it, they're going to factor that into how much money they offer the town. It'll be a lot less. So I just want to caution here, there's a lot of moving parts with this decision. It's not just a simple yes, no, but I think there's a lot of things it sounds like we're going to be making a deferral anyways. So with that, I just think there's a few points we haven't really talked about before, but I think it's important to talk about. But I'll leave that to Councillor Young. I think it's her turn in the circle of councillors now.
Yes, Councillor Young, go ahead. Thank you.
In regards to the OCP that we currently have, I did comment that years have passed and we now have buildings like the Berwick and the Railroad Affordable Housing and East Village that are 4, 5, 6 stories. And so could we maybe at least amend the OCP, the new one that we were drafting, to 4 stories and
Pardon me. We got to call it within the lines, Mr. Seals.
Thank you. Once again, we're considering the development permit and development variance permit.
This is in regards to height. Fellow Councillor Ann Skipsey did say that, yes, the height is for 3 stories, but it'll be by a case-by-case basis. And so this is a special case. And all the buildings that so far that our town has built 4, 5, or 6 stories, they're in full use. They're very popular. There is no more petitions or emails against them, which we did receive earlier on those buildings. And also Modus, who was just commenting to us about the WAAMH project, they also had mentioned way back when we were doing the OCP that for developers to build at this point, for it to be viable and feasible, it needs to be 4 stories. So, I wonder, so why are we saying it has to be 3 stories when it's not going to be viable and feasible? And that is a comment that was given to us by consultants that we're using for attainable housing. Also that I'd like to point out that this development has been in front of us for over a year, and they have made all changes that we have asked. And I feel that we should have been maybe asking more, but at this point, it just seems unfair to be bringing in some new asks when already the Advisory Planning Commission and our staff have recommended that we move ahead.
Well, that's not entirely correct. According to the motion that was passed, we said 3 stories. So that was a motion that council passed to direct our staff to work with a component, but only 3 stories. That was a motion that was passed. So I'll go back to Councillor Vander.
Thank you. I do have a comment, or may turn out to be a question. So we've been concentrating mostly on the facade and the building height as it's felt on the Hoy Lake Road East. But I think we also need to keep in mind that the 14.78 meters is going to be seen mostly along the north facade. And if you look at the renderings, the north facade is much more dense and massive with that extra height. And I'm also not clear, the building that has the three-story units in there, I'm not sure what the height of that building is. Again, I've had difficulty, and the dimensions may well have been there, but even though I have very good eyes, I could not read the dimensions. So that's another thing to keep in mind, is that if those buildings as well are 14.78 meters above natural grade, then that's a pretty massive building when you're first coming up Memorial. So I think we need to keep in mind that it's not just the Hoylake Road aspect, but it's the entire site. And the fact that other high buildings have been built elsewhere, I don't think that they have not affected residential neighborhoods the way that this particular building would affect a residential neighborhood. It's a completely different setting. So the height variance really depends on where you're putting the buildings on the site. So if they're all at the highest point, then they're going to be that much more, that much more impact or effect than if they're lower down. So a four-story building, if it's lower down in the site, might be okay, but certainly not up on the crest of the hill, on the top of the hill.
Thank you. Councillor Skipsey.
Yeah, thank you. And just to follow up on that and some of the comments made, the official community plan states that buildings should be a maximum of 3 stories in height, with taller buildings considered on a case-by-case basis if factors such as topography, solar access, compatibility with adjacent uses, neighborhood impact, views, community amenities, and contribution to housing stock which serves priority housing groups, affordable housing, and/or purpose-built rentals are considerations. And I don't think that this one checks any of those boxes at this point in time. And just to Councillor Harrison's comment that this would already be approved if it weren't for the height, I'm not so sure that staff, unless I'm getting this wrong, would have agreed that this meets the development permit area requirements or guidelines that says that the design shall recognize the importance of this site as a gateway to the uptown, and that in order to promote the charm of Qualicum Beach, buildings shall avoid massive building components in favor of smaller village scale character and design. So I think that council would have a role in determining whether or not this goes forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison.
Sorry, just to point out that that very popular passage applies to the village neighborhood. I don't believe this property is in the village neighborhood. I think it's outside. So that phrase actually doesn't apply in this, this property. But I think we're getting so far afield, and there was original discussion of deferring. I think we should just defer for a month anyways. If we're not going to actually approve it or reject it today, then I'll move to defer to March council meeting.
Thank you, and I'll second it, and I'll say why. I learned a lot today from both the proponents and also from the neighborhood. I think there is a way forward. We've also heard something about traffic improvements. So I'd like to come back with staff to work with the proponent based on what I heard to implement that, because I think there's something about this development that I think we need to pay close attention to. So we had a big meeting already today, including the budget and a lot of other issues that we dealt with. One of the best pieces of news we've heard was the primary care center across the street, but there are many other things too. And I appreciate the proponents, and I know when the proponent built, and maybe this is off target a little bit, but the height was an issue for the grocery store. And it was built in such a way that it became a major tourist attraction to go into the store because they had a tree in the produce area. That was a big deal. People came from all over to shop at Qualicum Foods because they had this innovative approach to attract people to their store and having a up step above in the coffee shop. So I agree with the comments from the owner that they are sensitive to the Qualicum Beach population needs. So I don't want to say, no, we're not doing this. I think I'd like to put another lens on it and speak with staff individually. We can have conversations, because I don't want to just say yes or no. I think there's some ways in between. Thank you. So a motion is to defer, and that's been seconded. Was it? Councillor Vander on the motion to defer. So not about to be deferring, but on the motion to defer.
Okay, I was going to make a suggestion while we are deferring until next month, if that's what we decide to do, that perhaps the proponents could have a public open house with residents, because I think that would be valuable.
That can only be a suggestion.
Yes.
You can't expect that, but
Yes.
it has worked in the past. So that's something to consider.
Thank you.
So on the motion to defer, are you all in favor? Thank you. Motion carried unanimously. Noise sensitive, no, sorry, the variance permit for Judges Row. This one won't take that long.
Thank you, Mayor Westbrook. The next topic under planning today is consideration of a development variance permit for a property on Judges Row. The requested variance is for the reconstruction of a boathouse. And I do have a few slides. Okay, thank you. So this is Judges Row here. There is an existing boathouse in place. The proposal is essentially to keep the same square footage of the boathouse, but to rotate it sideways. So rather than being lengthwise, perpendicular to the water, it would be sort of parallel to the water. Staff do recommend that this be advanced to the point of public notification to hear public comment and perhaps consider it at the next meeting. With regard to views, for example, the view that would predominantly be impacted is by the owner of this property, because that's their house across the street. So we are recommending that we proceed with notification. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison?
Move the staff recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Skipsey seconding. Discussion? Councillor Harrison.
I know there's a bit of a variance with the proposed setback from the water. I just want to point out, though, that the province's setbacks for floods are based on a UN standard from the early 2010s called RCP 8.5, which assumes essentially 8.5 degrees of global warming. This would be if we destroyed every solar panel, every hydro dam, every nuclear power generating facility and just use coal and oil and gas. That's not the trajectory we're on. We're still on a bad trajectory. I think it's around 2.5, somewhere between 2 and 2.5, depending on who you talk to. But it is a massively conservative number for that 15 meters. So a setback here isn't unreasonable, given the fact that we're going to have a very difficult time with climate change, but it won't be necessarily as bad as this, I hope. Obviously, there's potential chain reactions with melting permafrost, and you have methane, and then you have who knows what in Antarctica happens. That's way beyond my education level. But just to point out, the province does have a very, very high standard for this 15-meter setback on the waterfront. It's a very, very aggressive standard, so I feel comfortable giving them a few meters.
This is the motions to go to notification. And that was moved and seconded. Ms. Riverbank? We need a seconder. Councillor Skipsey seconds it. All right. Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? Any? Carried. Thank you. The next item is the Garden Road Dog Park, Class D estimate for pickleball courts with parking. I'm going to ask Mr. Watson to talk about that. Mr. Watson.
Thank you, Worship. Staff have been working closely with the Qualicum Beach Pickleball Club to try and find a location for 4 pickleball courts. Last fall, we brought a recommendation forward to Council to convert the 3rd court of the tennis courts to 4 pickleball courts, but that didn't go through for a number of reasons, one of which was that there may be a future decision to change that land purpose to something else. So at a subsequent meeting, the Aerosmith Tennis Club came forward and also supported not going through with the conversion of that 3rd court as well. So we went back to the drawing board and we looked at other sites, one of which was the middle ball fields the ball fields there, and I later learned that if we were to put the pickleball courts there, that the Little League would be put out of place and they wouldn't be able to play there anymore. So we also looked at the Garden Road Dog Park, and if you scroll down to Appendix A on the screen there, please. There is another site that we are considering at the east end of Garden Road East, just before it turns south to the dog park. This has a number of pros and a couple of cons to this particular location. One is that it is it's about 5 minutes from town, so it's a bit of a drive for people who are hoping to do something right in town. But with pickleball comes noise complaints, and at this particular location, there are very few houses within earshot of that general piece of land right there. So what we are seeking is, actually, before I forget, the tennis courts, if they were to have to move, this would be a perfect location for them to join up on the east side of the pickleball courts there. So we'd be able to, there's enough space there for 3 tennis courts on the east side of the pickleball courts. So what we are seeking from council today is a recommendation that council direct staff to engage Victoria Playco to prepare a Class D cost estimate for an expense of $1,275 to provide construction costs for potential installation of 4 pickleball courts and a gravel parking area near the Garden Road Dog Park. And further, that staff report back to council with the results of the Class D estimate for council's subsequent decision-making on a location and next steps for installation of pickleball courts in consideration of budget. Thank you.
Councillor Skipsey, Councillor Harrison, seconding. Discussion. Councillor Skipsey.
I just had one question on how did we arrive at 29 parking spots? It seems like quite a few. Thank you.
Through the chair, that's a good question. So it wasn't necessarily specifically 29 that we needed, but there was 22 people that play in a circuit at the Civic Center there. So I assumed that they would need at least 22 vehicles, and we have a couple extra spots across the fronts that we could produce quite easily.
I think actually it's a good idea, because I do foresee that there will be additional recreational, maybe tennis, maybe something else. But I do think that site will be more utilized in the future. We also have talked about a potential community garden in that area. So whatever the use is, I think it'll be reasonable there'll be more public use. So let's get the parking all at once. And good job to staff too, and some members of council. I think this is much better than what was initially being proposed. And I think this will make a lot more people happy when we get it done. And I was really worried that we're going to spend all this money to replace a tennis court, and then 10 years we have to start all over again and fundraise a second time. So I think this is a much better location. My one question to staff is about lighting. I'm assuming there's no lighting in that location for evening play.
Mr. Watson.
That is correct. At this point, there's no lighting out there, and there's no, we haven't made any, we're not going to make any provisions for lighting at this point.
I think that's quite reasonable, because it'd probably be very, very, very expensive. And I think we want to get this built. We don't want to wait 4 years for a grant.
Thank you. And as far as being 5 minutes from the uptown area, I think it's right next to Chartwell, close to Eaglecrest, Qualicum Woods, and people who play from the areas around us. This is a great location. It's highly visible, because everybody goes by Rupert Road, Bennett Road. They're all going to see this. So I think this is exciting, and it might help the group who wants to see this happen to put a sign up for fundraising, because it will probably cost a little bit more than what they originally stated. So they need to grow longer arms in their deep pockets, get some more money up. So with that, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Watson. And the next item is the expansion of the noise-sensitive areas. Mr. Goldfuss.
Thank you, Your Worship. The purpose of this report is to advance efforts to further mitigate noise concerns associated with the Qualicum Beach Airport. Discussion of expanded noise-sensitive areas has occurred since 2024. An establishment of a VTPC, which is a Visual Terminal Procedures Chart, has been discussed since September of 2025. Staff are seeking Council's direction to implement these changes now, with review to occur 1 year to determine the effectiveness of these measures. At that time, Council may choose to retain the status quo or provide additional direction to staff. This 1 year period will also allow staff to determine the effectiveness of data collection intended to assess the volume of landings touch and goes for aircraft equipped with ADSB, given Council's decision-making at the January 21st, 2026 meeting as follows. Resolution number 26-018, that staff be instructed to enter into a 1 year agreement with Alpha Aerial Solutions for a trial period for data collection technology for landings, touch and goes, operations, and other movements such as circuits to a maximum contract amount of $5,500 plus applicable taxes. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Mr. Goldfuss. Any questions? Councillor Harrison.
Sorry, just if I may, through the chair. Mr. Goldfuss, have you had an opportunity to speak to either Estuary or Sealand or potentially a second flight school that's in discussions about this proposed change, how it might impact their operations?
Mr. Goldfuss.
Thank you. Through the chair. Your Worship, this wouldn't affect the airline, Estuary Air, at all, okay? Because they follow a different procedure and they don't do circuits. So this would affect the VTPC and the noise-sensitive areas. It basically is for visual flight rules. So in essence, what it is it's for circuit training, for an example, for the VTPC. And then the noise-sensitive areas, again, it's a further measure to mitigate noise concerns. I hope that helps answer the question.
So the answer is no or yes? Sorry, just the question was, have you talked to them?
Yeah,
I'm just not sure about that. Sorry, and I'm not saying there's a right or wrong answer. I just want clarity.
Yeah, so they are aware. Yes, they are aware. And we've had discussions with them. They are aware of the VTPC. They are aware of the proposal. And again, it doesn't affect the airline. It will affect flight schools, private pilots in terms of the NSAs and the VTPC proposed.
Thank you. Ms. Varela.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a reminder to the public and council that this proposal has been presented publicly numerous times, so stakeholders are aware. Thank you, Your Worship.
But I think the area in the top recommendation, preferred departure going east, that's when the planes power up. So it's much noisier, and I think to request that they that we would prefer if they took off to the east, I guess that's runway 29, would help a lot of people instead of going the other direction when you power up right above the places where we've had so many complaints. So I think this would be a significant improvement. Councillor Skipsey.
I just have one question, and that's when we were discussing this previously, we talked about, I think it was Comox that had pre-approval, no, pre-something for circuits, PPR. Pre-authorized. And I just wondered if it's possible to add that to the flight supplement or whether or not we would hold off on that for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Varela.
Thank you, Your Worship. Staff would request the opportunity to bring the issue of PPR back to prior permission required, back to a future meeting of Council. So the recommendation presented today stands for Council's consideration, and we'll bring the issue of PPR back to a future meeting. Thank you, Your Worship.
Mr. Goldfuss, you wanted to add to that? No, you're good?
It was the same comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Skipsey?
I just wanted to move the recommendations.
Okay, both?
Yes.
Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Vander. Councillor Harrison.
Yeah, so the reason I was asking about the flight schools, because I remember, yeah, it's just in flights for Esqueo. Both directions, they should be getting basically told to go in a straight line, which is why we don't have a gap between the two, the Eaglecrest and the Qualicum Woods, even though Qualicum Woods, some of the folks there, one or two of the folks there at least, would like to see that gap closed. We can't, actually. My concern is just that I understand why having that quick turn to the left, the immediate turn, it's really loud for the folks who are right below. But when I look at the arc, we're getting close to some significantly more homes, basically, in Qualicum Beach. Now, the dissipation of sound, I think, is logarithmic, so sound dissipates pretty quickly. I'm just wondering, do we have a rough idea of what height we'd be at? Like, would it be high enough that it wouldn't be so loud? So, yes, it's over your head, but it's, oh, there's a plane, not, oh my God, there's another plane. So I don't have a scientific measurement for that, but I'm just trying to get at, what will the experience be for these people? Because I know this area, like off of Berwick, there's a very large, small group of homes that are clustered together, and they're all older, and I just worry that we'll, you know, how should I say it? If it's very loud for 5 people where it's abysmal, and I sympathize, and then we create a situation which is very, very difficult for dozens more, and I'm just curious, like, how loud do you think it would be on the ground, and will it be reasonable for the folks who are in the current flight path?
Thank you. Through the chair. So just for clarity, those turns to the south are when safe to do so. Okay, so if you're asking the question, would there be a difference? So if I was a pilot and I made a decision to turn south when safe to do so, and if that was before the railway tracks, which commonly is done, that's estimated with a 172 between 400 and 500 feet. Above sea level. So there would be no change in terms of the altitude. So what I'm saying is pilots would continue to make that south turn when safe to do so at that average altitude of 400 to 500 feet. The change is here with the VTPC is it's an improved good neighbor program, and it's actually an improved, what we've been commonly hearing is the Sealand route. It's actually an improved Sealand route as well, because the Good Neighbor program and the Sealand route are basically both the same, okay? So the improvements with this, again, is to mitigate noise. We've chosen this path as the lowest density path, and what it does is it's able to be published in the Canadian Flight Supplement, whereas the Good Neighbor program cannot. So, and this is common with CFSs and airports for VTPCs to be published, because what it tells the pilot coming into Qualicum Beach when they want to do circuits, for an example, or the flight school or a private pilot, that they are required to follow that VTPC, right? So I hope that helps.
And just the last question, the reason I was asking about reaching out to the flight schools is that there's an economic viability to some extent, depending on route. So how many circuits you can, how much fuel you have to burn through. There's a lot of factors where it's good. That's why I think it's good to touch base with some of the flight schools. Like, are we creating a route? Because I know Sealand is great, they're wonderful. But are we creating a barrier from flight schools actually operating? Especially because some of the conversations, I strongly believe that if we could electrify our airport, that'd be lovely, but it's a massive capital expenditure. And if we have a much longer route, which limits the number of training routes in a day, say they lose X number of training circuits, and it's just like the economic viability, and I don't know, obviously, about that. So that's just why I'm being really particular, is that I don't want us to set a flight path that looks great on paper, but then ruins the business model for them to transition or invest in the future.
Well, I think, Council, that's why we're elected to make sometimes difficult decisions, that it's a balance between what is reasonable for both sides.
It's just more like, have we had that conversation is sort of what I'm asking, and I think Mr. Goldfuss wanted to respond.
Mr. Goldfuss.
Thank you, through the chair. Yes, we have had that conversation, and they are aware, and they're actually supportive of it. I mean, pilots follow rules, and they're very familiar with these types of rules. They are acutely aware of the situation in around Qualicum Beach, and from what we've heard in public meetings as well, is that they really want to work with the town and the community to try and mitigate some of these issues. Thank you.
Well, if staff are confident that we've had the conversation and the businesses are on board, just because this is not a great time for the airline sector overall, and we have a unique airport, I do worry that sometimes with good intentions, we create a lot of extra rules and then we accidentally create a problem. So if staff are confident with that, fair enough.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion? It was unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Goldfuss. You put a lot of time and effort into trying to tweak it so we can get this passed and that it makes it better for people involved and more importantly, for the quality of life for everyone. Thank you. All right, the next item is the water supply, water safety planning study project. Who's going to speak to that? Mr. Cote, I think it's you, Amro.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll take that just while the director settles back into his chair. So we are requesting early budget approval in fiscal 2026 for the WSP water study in the amount of $85,000 excluding GST, and this would be funded from the water reserve. So this would actually incorporate Qualicum Beach's data into the RDN's model so that we actually have an updated study for the region as a whole. We've been working on this for the last year and a half. I know our regional partners are waiting for this data to be incorporated. Again, we had some disagreements about the study produced by the RDN. This would update that study. So again, staff are requesting early budget approval in fiscal 2026 in the amount of $85,000 funded from the water reserve. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. If I move in a second, I will discuss it. Councillor Skipsey and Councillor Harrison. Discussion. Councillor Harrison.
Oh, and for the benefit of the public too, there's been a lot of discussions on all things water. The city of Parksville had a very expensive study. They had another preliminary round of discussion on it in their February 5th or February 3rd meeting. But it's available online and you can look at it. It's a very detailed study of all things water in the area. Very interesting. It makes good sense for us to update our information as well and make sure that all the region we have a contemporary understanding because the way climate change is impacting snowmelts and the snowpack in the mountains, it's a great time to really drill down and get up-to-date information. Some of the agreements we made 20 years ago are looking long in the tooth. I know this is a bad year for the budget, but I think this is a core service and we need to update the information. It makes sense.
Thank you. Any further comments? All in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Thank you. And then we have the request for contract of Eaglecrest Golf Course reconfiguration, and there's a green sheet to that. And Mr. Coleman is going to talk to that.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So this report is regarding Eaglecrest course reconfigurations award. So we issued the RFQ to reconfigure the Eaglecrest Golf Course area on December 17, 2025, with a closing date January 16, 2026. We did extend it to February 2nd to give more time for the bidders. So we received 3 qualified bidders, and those submission, we went through a fair evaluation, and we found that Grassroots Enterprises submission was the strongest overall quotation package and offered also the lowest price as well. So we held the clarification meetings with Grassroots Enterprises. We went through the submission package, we had questions, and we were satisfied with all the details they provided. So the contractor's bid, to clarify, did not include building the bridge as part of the proposed work. They proposed a different methodology, so the bridge work is not part of the current bid. However, if the bridge in the future or during the process become necessary later, then we'll bring that back to council. To make sure this project will reflect what we actually need, We will work with grassroots enterprises and our specialized consultant to refine the scope. And we also will retain some advisors as well as needed to help us refine the scope. And refining this scope on the ground sometimes will need some changes and additional work that require like a quick response. So to avoid any delays or unnecessary going back and forth, we would request delegated authority to the CEO to approve and sign extra work orders up to the approved council budget amount. And this keeps the project moving efficiently while staying within the approved budget amount. And the budget, next step I'll be speaking about the actual budget itself. So we had the contract bid is $1,181,800. So that's the actual bid. However, due to the complexity of the scope of the framework, we're requesting 30% contingency and 10% for consulting and inspection as well. So adding the contingencies and consulting and also inspection will require a total, the contract package itself, not the bid, that we add those additional to it, it will go up to $1,650,000. So the total budget itself for the full Eaglecrest golf course is $2.5 million. However, we anticipate any funds beyond $1.65 million would be used for other things such as equipment renewal and other improvement to the golf course. So this project will require corporate communications. So to keep council have been communicated on a better basis and to provide a single point of contact, we request that to have the mayor be appointed as a council liaison for this project. So conclude all the information for this project, and what we actually requesting would be, we recommend awarding the contract to Grassroots Enterprises for $1,181,800. We request delegating authority to the CEO to approve extra work orders up to the approved amount by council to address this any site changes quickly. We request council to appoint mayor as council liaison, and we're asking council to approve the project budget increase to $1,650,000 to include contingency, consulting, and inspections. Any questions?
Thank you. Questions? Ms. Councillor Harrison.
Yeah, just through the chair, thank you very much, Your Worship. Have we undertaken any sort of economic analysis for the business case for the particular type of redesign we're doing? I know we have someone who's very familiar with the history of Eaglecrest, very familiar with the Eaglecrest golf course, but I'm just wondering, I know there's a lot of balls in the air with the clubhouse, the restaurant, all these other factors. But I do feel that it's crucial that we get the golf course right for the business case for what the long-term vision is for all those different factors together. I'm just wondering, like, have we discussed this? Do we have a rough idea? Like, these are the courses that we're in alignment with the proposed redevelopment, and this is the sort of target demographic that we want to attract to the golf course. Here's sort of the business case in those areas. It's a bit of a lengthy question, my apologies, but it's so important that we get this right, because if we design a course that doesn't make money, that's going to be not making money every single year, going on and on and on. And so if it is something that's profitable, then we're making money every year, on and on and on. So this is just why I'm really stressing this. My apologies.
Thank you. Mr. Seals, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Westbrook. Through the chair to Councillor Harrison. The question is a good one, and it's a question that, as a team, we've been wrestling with quite a bit. There's a few key decision points in terms of the design that could influence the number of holes, or sorry, the par of the course, and also kind of the playability and enjoyment. So and safety, of course. So right now we're kind of balancing those, and we're getting advice from the experts. So in answer to your question, if I understand exactly what the question was, is yes, we do have advice from community members that are familiar with the economic implications of these design choices, and so we're working with them, but also balancing that with the safety angle and kind of the golf course expertise. So yes, absolutely. Thank you.
And if I may, sorry, just the reason I'm making that is that economically, I think there's a fair argument that this is probably the most important decision point in the whole Eaglecrest. Like the land sales is a one-time injection of capital. Technically, you get taxation revenue afterwards too, to be fair. But if there's $1 million variance in revenues at the golf course for green fees and memberships, that could have major implications long-term for the town. In terms of how much do we have to subsidize or not. Would excess revenues pay off things which otherwise would have to be either land sales or taxes? So I'm really, sorry, this is why I'm really, really cautious about this, is that it's easy to do this quickly, and I do commend staff for getting a bid that's so much below what was expected, and I do think they've done a good job on this. I just worry that we move ahead with something and then 10 years later we have a bit of buyer's remorse that why didn't we design it that way instead of this way?
I can tell you that we've started this in April with consultations with folks who, one of them still holds the record of that golf course, and actually got a scholarship on golf to go to university, and also took land use planning. And he's been incredibly valuable to us pro bono to give us advice from a golfer's perspective and land use planning. Ms. Varela?
Thank you, Your Worship. So staff does recognize that a par 35 is the most economically beneficial, if you will. We will be providing rationale why that is achievable or why it is not achievable. So staff are exploring it thoroughly with a panel of consultants. Thank you very much, Your Worship.
Thank you. Any other comments? Then can we proceed with the first recommendation? Councillor Young.
Can we wait on awarding this contract until maybe next year with, just because we haven't had any income from land sales yet, and can we just kind of get things running up just with the grounds being looked after, and then having just a smaller golf course happening so that everybody gets more of a feel of what's going on before we hire a consultation team that costs so much at this moment when we don't have funds to play with?
Thank you. Ms. Varela.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the consultants are a mix of both paid for and not paid for. So what we've done is we've pulled together the team that we need with the expertise that we need. I'd like to remind Council that we do have a $2.5 million budget for this item, and so you will be approving that as part of your budget that will be before you. So again, while it is a lot of money, it is anticipated, and we're moving forward with numerous pieces on this project at the same time, one of which is the golf course reconfiguration. We're also moving forward the development for land sales, and we're also working on the budget to fund this in the interim. So again, recognizing all those pieces that are being moved forward at the same time. Thank you, Your Worship.
Councillor Young.
Thanks for that. But it's just that earlier on this morning, we asked for if our taxation could be reduced down to 6.5, and so maybe this is money that we may not have, and we might want to use it for more other priorities.
Thank you, Your Worship. So again, a reminder to public and the council that Eaglecrest is intended to be self-funded for the golf course and the associated facilities, the clubhouse and those sorts of things. So those will not impact taxation. Thank you, Your Worship.
So it has been moved and seconded for the number one item, which is the grassroots enterprise qualification, and to authorize staff to execute a contract. Councillor Young.
Just one more thing.
Did I have a mover and second for that yet? No? Okay, go ahead.
I just want to say that also for the purchase of the golf course, we did pull money out of reserves, and so I'm just thinking maybe that it would be nice to have some of that money in the reserves back.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Harrison.
I would recognize too that one of the complications here is that in order to have a lease with someone to operate the restaurant and the clubhouse, they are expecting in the near order to have a functioning golf course. But at the same time, I just have so many trepidations that about the due diligence. I know staff have said they've done it, but I don't really see that as part of the report in terms of here's the market, here's expected revenues for the next 5 to 10 years, here's comparable golf courses and their revenue streams, and here's how we're going to make sure that we're not being a financial drain in 7 years' time with low membership. So I wouldn't be supporting the award, although I do respect the work staff have put into this. I know you guys are working incredibly hard, and I have a lot of respect for the fact that you're doing the best you can, but I do think that there's a bit of a rush here. Yeah, there's a little bit of information I'd like that I just don't see in the package at present.
Thank you. Any further comments? Could I have a motion to the first part, and then we'll discuss. Councillor Skipsey, Councillor Vander move the first of the recommendations. The further discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Young, Councillor Harrison opposed. The second one, to delegate authority to approve future adjustments. That one. Can we have a motion to that effect? Councillor Skipsey, Councillor Young, Councillor Vander Sorry. Discussion. Councillor Harrison.
I'm not trying to be difficult when I ask questions, or I might be voting no against it. But if there was going to be a significant variance, I'm fine with delegating staff. I'm assuming there'd be some presentation to council and the public when is reasonable. I understand you guys are slammed, so it's not like you could, just immediately drop it at drop of a hat to a presentation on scope change. But I'm assuming that would be part of the delegation of authority here.
Yes, and it has to be within budget. Councillor Miscellaneous.
Thank you, Your Worship. So if you look at recommendation number 5 on the sheet, we do actually require reporting at the close of the reconfiguration project, just to provide that level of certainty for the public and council. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. On the second recommendation, it's been moved and seconded for the discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Harrison, Councillor Young opposed. On the third one, to provide temporary authorization for the CAO. Perhaps you can explain that, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the purchasing policy does allow me to sign for projects up to $75,000. We would like to extend that just within Council's maximum budget, and just for this project. We're tempering, sorry, that was hard to say, Your Worship, with Council's the mayor's oversight, if you will, in the role of council liaison. So the mayor would be fully informed of what I would be signing off on. And again, council and the public would receive that reporting out at the close of reconfiguration project. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. We have made a commitment to be transparent and share all the information that we can and have. So that's a wonderful sense of security for everybody involved watching this, that we're going to be transparent and we're going to make decisions that reflect the things that we have approved in our budget. So for the third one, it's been moved and seconded. Councillor Harrison.
And yeah, just to avoid confusion, I'll still be voting against this, but it doesn't reflect on the CAOs. It's actually a good idea for her to have this in here with the policies, because in the past we've had some confusion at times where are we allowed to sign off on this or not, and just being very clear with the policy, it's a good idea. So I'm glad to see the resolutions here.
Thank you. Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Harrison opposed. Councillor Young, are you opposed too? Yes. Okay. Did you have a question?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. We didn't have that mover and seconder.
Yes, we did. Councillor Skipsey and Councillor Vander. Okay, number 4, and that's to appoint me as the liaison. Could I have a motion to that effect? Councillor Skipsey, Councillor Vander Discussion? Councillor Harrison.
This is a little bit odd. I know this is something that's very much a passion project for the mayor, but usually for me this would be more like falling under the purview of Parks and Rec. So it's a little bit of a deviation.
It is, and I appreciate that. So I'm prepared to do it. It's a lot. It's more work. Councillor Skipsey is involved with Memorial Golf Course, and we thought this would be a fair way of sharing the workload. So it's been moved and seconded? No, it hasn't been moved and seconded. It was moved and seconded. All right. I'm not completely losing it. Okay, so on the motion, all in favor? Opposed? Councillor Harrison, you're opposed? Okay. Now, number 5. Council direct staff to provide council with reporting. Can I have a motion to that effect? Councillor Vander, Councillor Skipsey, discussion. Councillor Harrison.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, I'm just trying to wrap my head around it, and to everyone's point, our blood sugar levels are dropping. So my apologies if this is a really dumb question. I am really sorry if this is a poor question. So if it's anything that's right now under budget, would that still trigger the requirement for reporting out? I know you would. The way it's worded, that's why I just like, if it's under that amount, does it still trigger the operative clause?
Ms. Varela.
We will provide full and transparent reporting, whether it was over or under, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you. So that was moved and seconded, Mr. Nuremberg? Okay. Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Young, Councillor Harrison opposed. So then the one more item is the I think that's it for Eaglecrest. That's we're done. So then there was another late item, and that did we cover E? Yeah. Yeah. I got it. Yeah. Okay, so it's the Little Qualicum Riverbank Stabilization Project, and Mr. Amber is going to speak to that.
So Little Qualicum Riverbank Stabilization Project at the December 17, 2025 Council Special Meeting, Council endorsed the Little Qualicum Riverbank Stabilization Project and committed to cover any cost variance above the grant-funded amount. The province drift program that we did apply for funding for this project has asked that we amend this resolution to confirm that the town will own the project and be responsible for operation and maintenance after the project construction is completed. So that's why we request it came as part of their applications back and forth for the last few months, and this is one of the requirements they asked to add to this resolution, as it shows on the screen, the report.
Thank you. If you go down there, if you want to have a look to see what's happening there, I'm happy to take you, or one of our staff can. And as I mentioned earlier, Chief Verkalma had a look at it before we even went to the design stage. He agreed that, yeah, we need to deal with this. And then when we had the plan, we invited Chief Verkalma again to look at the plan, and he agreed with that. So I will support this resolution, but I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Harrison, Councillor Skipsey, seconded. Discussion. Councillor Harrison.
And folks shouldn't be worried. This is kind of how it would play out anyways, but if the province wants us to make it extra super clear, I'm happy to do so.
Okay. Thank you. So with that, any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried unanimously. Thank you. And I think that brings us to the end of the meeting. Thank you for those who hung in there with us all this time. So I need a motion to go in camera. Councillor Harrison, Councillor Skipsey, we are in camera, so we'll clear the deck and